spending problem.
The time of spending more money in America in government is wrong.
The speaker said negotiators would work through the night, and he and the president would talk daily. Sagar Mangani, Washington.
Florida's new law blocking Chinese citizens and some other foreigners from buying some land is drawing a legal challenge. The AP's Lisa Dwyer.
The suit filed in a federal court by the American Civil Liberties Union claims that the law unfairly targets
Reverend Thurston is on.
okay actions of their governments.
Reverend Thurston?
To land near military
Hey, honey, I need to see you soon. My mother and I do.
Citizens of Cuba.
All right, we can make that happen.
Okay, before you get out of here. Wait a minute, before everything gets...
Yes, ma'am.
Before I can't see you no more.
I'm Lisa Dwyer.
That's right.
Shelters in Guam are filling up with residents.
Right, honey, I got so much going on.
I'll give you a call this afternoon. We can set something up.
Okay, looks good, honey, because I got so much, I have got so much going on.
Strike in New York City's
Oh, my
Elmhurst
gosh.
Hospital Center. About 160
yesterday I was like,
resident
I'm looking
physicians
like a
began
drunken
their strike
sailor here.
yesterday over pay.
But not crazy. You know what? I'm going to have to get Aflac.
Now to the years
I
old
looked up and I
mystery.
was like, whoa. I mean,
searching for
I looked up and I got shocked by a hospital bill
who disappeared in
or
the
medical
Yeah,
bills. You know, and it can happen.
Yes,
I was like,
it can happen.
it can
That's the
happen.
losing cause of people losing everything.
Oh, honey, I was like, oh.
in the area by the Arade Dam.
I mean, not to
About
mention,
30 miles
starting a
from
business.
Valladolid, where the 3-year-old was last
You know,
seen
that's what I
alive
mean. Well,
on
don't
Monday.
cry for me, Argentina. It is what it is.
Released a statement.
It is what it is.
It is what it is. But oh boy, it is what it is. I said, Lord,
Facebook sounds good.
thank you so much. But I'm really excited about that because I will be able to, have things that, I've been looking for satchels,
I'm Charles.
and I was telling my mother, I said, I've got to work. So my purse is not just a purse.
WCPT Willow Springs.
I got an iPad to put in there,
CPT
microphones,
We are Chicago's progressive.
makeup.
Whole production studio.
You understand what I'm saying? And
Now,
don't
your
forget my
WCPT
makeup.
820 weather update.
Everybody over here. It's
That was gotta be fabulous too.
Summer, I'm meteorologist
Santita's always full of
Jonathan
stuff.
Vuchitsky. We'll see sunny
My mother looked at me,
in the
you
B's,
want
winds
some
out of the
yes, and you know I
southeastern
got a
5 to
couple
10
shades
miles
in
per
there.
hour. Then 4
What you
tonight,
want?
58. Wednesday, sunshine breeze up to 67 degrees.
Oh my
Thursday, plenty of blue
gosh.
skies and sun with a high
I
of
think
63.
I'm like my father's
Friday,
mother in that
sunshine
way.
high around
I'm like,
69
honey,
and
my
Saturday,
grandmama,
sunny high of 77.
first thing she
That's
did was
your
get herself
latest
together in the
Chicago
morning.
weather update.
And she slept in
It's
beautiful
63.
lingerie.
How do you know
It
if
was
your sump
hilarious.
pumps are working? More importantly,
It was
how do you know
hilarious.
if they're not? At Permaseal, we know the
I
only
just
way to
remember
ensure
she
your
was
pumps are
she
in
was
working
real
order is
fat
to test
and
them
she was real
every day.
squishy.
We all lead busy lives.
And well,
Most
she
people
was
don't even think
overweight.
about their
and she
sump
was
pumps until
squishy.
there's a big
And
mess
but
in
you
the
get in
basement.
the bed, I get in bed
Permaseal
with her
can now
first thing in
offer
the
you
morning.
exclusively the
And
best
she
solution to
would
keeping your basement
she would be
crawl
wearing,
space dry
lacy
all the time.
lingerie. It was really
Introducing the
pretty.
Basement Defender.
And she let me have some of her very sweet coffee, which is why I like my coffee very creamy and very sweet
you to
right
any
now.
problems. We'll also test and alert you to changes in your
If it's
basement
not
temperature
real
and
sweet and
humidity
creamy,
levels, which
it
can
can't
help
taste
avoid
like
frozen
coffee.
pipes
People
and
look at me like
costly
I'm
mold
not talking
issues.
about my
Our
grandmother and
Basement
I.
Defender
She
customers
let
have
me
the
have a little
ultimate peace of
taste of her
mind.
coffee in the
They know
morning.
that their pump equipment is working properly,
It
allowing them
was
to rest
it was
peacefully
sweet
during
and it was
storms.
wonderful.
Call Permaseal and ask about the
Oh my
Basement Defender.
gosh! There was an 8-year-old child who died at the border patrol.
Permaseal.net.
And you heard about this 4-year-old boy they dropped over the she was a little Haitian girl.
I am very pleased to be joined by State Representative Margaret.
That's why we have to be honest
in
about
America, we
the fact that this is a
both
corporate plan.
pregnant person
And I really think, and I'm saying this here on Facebook Live now, I am not so sure they will not let us go into
other
default.
developed countries do, because like you mentioned, America is
and because they were talking about short-term defaults
maternal
today.
mortality. we have one of the highest death rates in a developed country.
Yeah.
It's embarrassing. We should be embarrassed. We should be ashamed when it comes to how we
And
treat.
I
I'm
said,
looking to see if I need to make my ticket a one-way
Those of
ticket.
you who are thinking of
let me tell
calling
you
in and
something.
saying,
No,
well,
you know, I mean,
in those
first of all,
European
there'll be a-
countries, taxes
Remember
are
who
much
announced
higher
the
than
Great
they are
Reset
here.
from the World
Yes,
Economic
you're right.
Forum?
But when you
That was
look at
Prince
what
Charles,
we
okay?
pay out of pocket for that kind of stuff,
So you
we
remember that.
pay
There's something going
more.
on.
Keep listening to WCPT 820 because facts matter.
And this is way above my pay grade.
You're listening to WCPT
But at least I
820.
feel like now something else is happening here. And did you hear about New York City
You want to be part
sinking
of something
under the
bigger,
weight
something that matters and can help change
of
things.
You want to feel like you belong.
We know.
all
We
of
have
the
3
buildings
minutes.
in New
And
York?
that's why we
thank you,
did
sweetie.
something about it.
All the
We aren't
buildings
just
in
Army
New
National
York
Guard soldiers.
We
are too.
normal
They are
people
sinking
just
the
like
land
you,
of New York.
But our part-time service.
So
and
New
our
York could
National
fall
Guard
into the
means we
sea.
get to
Do you
more.
understand what I'm
When
trying
our
to say here?
communities are in need, we get the chance to stand up and do something about it.
We get to support our
Oh,
own
my
region and help the
gosh.
people we call neighbors.
From the lake shores of Ohio,
We're going to be
Michigan,
talking
Wisconsin,
about
and
Tim
Minnesota.
Scott
The
today.
fertile fields of Indiana, Illinois, and Iowa,
pay
to
attention
the
to that
wide open
campaign.
plains of North and
It would
South
be-
Dakota.
We are here
I'm
for
saying
our
it, y'all. It
region.
would be a masterstroke
And together,
for
we
Trump to
can
put him
make
on
a
the ticket,
difference.
and he would do
Take
it.
on your
Remember,
legacy.
black people are socially
Visit
conservative.
nationalguard.com to find out more.
So,
Sponsored by the Illinois Army
Don't-
National Guard.
don't
Aired by
think-
the Illinois Broadcasters
I mean, and-
Association at this station.
look, I mean, it's all politics.
I'm a
You
viewer.
had, well, they're both corporate Democrats.
I love
Biden
gymnastics,
and
piano, public
um,
speaking, and riding
and
a
Obama.
motorbike with my dad.
And yes, he was
You
a
can
corporate
help me live
Democrat,
the life
and I
I
liked
want.
him and voted for him.
Help
That having been
Ravina
said,
and other
those
blind
were
people by
politics.
making a
He
tax-deductible
was one of the
donation of your
DLC
used
leaders
car,
to watch in
truck, or almost
2003.
anything with wheels to the National
Which gave black
Federation of the Blind.
progressives cause
Your
to pause.
donation will help
They were like,
ensure
"Whoa,
a
hold
brighter
on, who are
future
you?"
for
Well,
blind
like, that's who
children
he
and
is.
adults.
But
Just
that's
call
who they're gonna let through,
855-659-9314.
because they don't want a populist
That's
Look at how they treated Bernie.
855-659-9314.
That having been said, for the optics and to make white America
Or
feel
visit
better,
carshelpingtheblind.org. That's
they needed- he needed
carshelpingtheblind.org. We
Biden,
will
who's
arrange
a
to have the
conservative
donated
Democrat.
vehicle picked
Also.
up and provide you with a tax-deductible
So, you know, this
receipt.
is just politics,
and
everybody.
if you know someone
Don't get
who is
mad at it.
blind
Don't
that can
get-
use
don't hate
our
the player,
help,
hate the game.
email
Don't even hate the game,
nfb
understand
at
the game, so you gotta fight it.
nfb.org.
Blindness does not hold me back at all.
Like, really?
Donate today.
Gotta go up in our politics, honey, because, you know, he
When a
would
child
put
is
him on the
1
ticket,
minute.
and guess what?
The last thing
He would
parents
get-
should
he would
have
get
to
a
worry
chunk of black
about
voters
is how
because
to
he's
pay for
Southern.
it. This is a St.
And he
Jude
speaks
baby.
our language.
Calvin got diagnosed June 10th of 2018. He has
And
rhabdomyosarcoma,
the other piece that people
a soft
do
tissue
not get
cancer. One oncologist told us if it was my
is
son,
that
we'd go to St. Jude.
Republicans put
And
money
within 24
in
hours, they're
different
on a plane
communities.
headed here. It's hard
They
to
spend
fathom
money.
what St. Jude has
Democrats do
done
not do that.
for us.
They don't spend money
They've
with
really
black
given
people.
our family hope. For the donors
So-
out there, it's just
30 seconds.
I never thought we would be in
There's
this
a train
place.
coming. Choo
And
choo.
it's people like you that
This stuff is about
help
to get
us
real
and help
interesting.
St. Jude provide for
Don't
our
get mad
family
at
like
me.
ours.
You know,
St.
I
Jude
go
is
beyond.
the gold
It's
at
for
the
me,
end of
this
a
is not
rainbow.
personal.
We are so grateful and thankful for
And
everything.
don't make it
Finding
personal, y'all.
cures, saving children. Learn
10
to
seconds.
Thank you so much, Alice. Let's have a great show. I know that we will.
Stand by.
You're listening to WCPT 820 because facts matter.
We can change the world, change the world, change the world. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world. I am green.
Hey, everybody, welcome to the Santita Jackson. Getting a little feedback. We're working that out. Tuesday, May 23rd, 2023. I am Santita Jackson, coming to you from WCPT 820, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, and AM 950 radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. It's a joy to be with you today. Meet my morning stars over on the Santita Jackson and Friends page on Facebook. Santita Jackson and Friends, and Francis and Shirley from beautiful Philadelphia, and Jewel and Dave Dowling and Linear Bob. Everybody, Raphael, please like and share the show right now. Like and share the show. Everybody, like and share it with at least one person. Like and share, like and share. And go on over to my YouTube, Tita Jackson Show YouTube channel, and meet me on Twitter at Santita J. I've tweeted out some of the stories that we're going to be dealing with today. Let's look at Tim Scott and his candidacy. It is a fascinating candidacy, and I'll tell you why. Remember, he was appointed to the U.S. Senate by Nikki Haley. He's the first African-American to serve in the lower and upper houses of Congress. That is the U.S. House of Representatives and the U.S. Senate. And he won in a landslide. After he'd been appointed, he then won in a landslide. So he's very popular in the state of South Carolina, and he's popular with black people. And I'm wondering how that would translate across the country. I mean, because as you can see, President Biden is struggling in terms of his numbers, just straight across the board. But black people are socially conservative, too. And so it's just an interesting time, y'all. So I want to know what you think about his candidacy. What if Trump put him on the ticket? What? Would that be a game changer? I'm just saying, let's just find out what you think, everybody. Everything that was is not what you see today. Everything that you see today might not be tomorrow. We know where we were. We don't know where we're going. Okay? So I want you to talk to me today. And then, of course, John Nichols from The Nation magazine is in the Deep South. And he is looking at what is happening there in terms of election 2024. So that's what we're talking about today, election 2024, as we are looking at defaults. Sometimes people, they're saying that you could have a short-term default or a long-term default. Wow. And with this whole great reset that we hear everyone talking about, the World Economic Forum, and it was announced by Prince Charles. What does this mean? Is the great reset the end of the dominance of the American dollar? What is going on, everybody? I want to hear your thoughts, your theories. Call me at 773-763-9278, 773-763 WCPT here on Tuesday, May 23rd, 2023 at the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, WCPT and AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. Hey, everybody. In Chicago, we'll have a high of 75 degrees. I think it's time to put the wool away, kind of. Minneapolis, St. Paul, 85 degrees and sunny. In the NBA, was this LeBron James' last game? Now, they caught him after the Nuggets bested the Lakers, 113-111. They caught him right after the game. And of course, you're not feeling like that. But he's 38. He surpassed Wilt Chamberlain as the all-time NBA scorer. I think he's got enough left in the tank. What do you think? I hope so, everybody. But anyway, for the first time in their history, not only did the Denver Nuggets sweep the Lakers, but they will, for the first time in their history, go to the finals. Now, what's going to happen tonight? The Heat are up 3-0 over the Celtics. Will they close it out tonight? We will see. But anyway, the finals begin next week in the NBA and in the NHL. I love this time of year. What's going to happen with the Panthers and the Hurricanes? The Panthers won, the Hurricanes, nothing last night. They shut them out. The Panthers lead their series 3-0. The Golden Knights will be playing the Stars tonight. Vancouver is up 2-0 in that series. In Major League Baseball, the Giants 4. The Twins won. The Guardians 3. The White Sox, well, they were shut out. The Mets will be playing the Cubs today. In the NBA, the Dream will be playing the Lynx. What are some of the other headlines? Millions of people in Mexico have been warned to prepare for a possible evacuation due to increased activity from one of the country's most dangerous active volcanoes. E. Jean Carroll has asked a judge to amend her initial defamation case against former President Donald Trump following comments he made during a CNN town hall. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen reinforced her warning to Congress Monday that it has only a little time left to address the debt ceiling before the nation defaults on its obligations, everybody. What will happen, everybody? And then there is now a campaign demanding justice for an 8-year-old girl who died in U.S. Border Patrol custody. Of course, a 4-year-old boy was dropped over the fence. Their parents are desperate for their children to have better lives, everybody. But there is, they're calling it Welcome with Dignity campaign for asylum rights, and they remembered Anadith Tene Reyes Alvarez, an 8-year-old girl who came to the United States with her Honduran parents, and she's of African descent, following her death on May 17th with these Border Patrol agents. And we're going to be looking into that case to find out What happened, everybody? So those are just some of the headlines on the Santita Jackson Show. I've got good news from Pastor Stephen Thurston. Pastor Stephen Thurston, it is a joy to be with you today. And of course, you're on Facebook Live every Friday at 3 p.m. Central Standard Time. And it's always great to get some good news from you. I need a reset.
Yes, ma'am. Well, let me see if I can help.
Ms. Jackson, you have a caller.
Challenge everybody that it's okay to take your thinking cap off. That's the good news. It's all right to take your thinking cap off. The word overthinking usually denotes a negative connotation. But what if we stopped viewing overthinking as a bad habit and started thinking of it as a habit that indicates something more, something deeper? People labeled as overthinkers are thought as anxious, hyper, ungrounded, or maybe even insecure. These things might be true, but in reality, people who think a lot are intelligent, creative, empathic, and solution-oriented, none of which are negative. In fact, these are some really good strengths. It's when these aspects, however, of one's personality go unfeared or untended that they become what's called shadow aspects. What's a shadow aspect, Stephen? Anxiety, hyperactivity, ungroundedness, or even insecurity. Thinking a lot is a habit, much like any other habit that you and I deal with. And where overthinking becomes problematic, though, is when we continually overlook the underlying need behind the behavior. Overthinking is something we start doing because we're coping with feelings that might be uncomfortable or with needs that aren't met. An intelligent or creative person's mind needs to be fed. It needs food for thought. When this type of person doesn't provide their mind with intriguing or stimulating information on a regular basis, they'll feel an unmet need. And it's quite possible that the person will start to think or to fantasize about things they have no control over, simply to fill the space. Similarly, if empathic people aren't aware that they're an empath or their needs for emotional fulfillment are unmet, then overthinking is one of the possible coping mechanisms that they'll end up using. It's something you can do without using anything that's outside of you. It's a habit that no one around you can see, and it can provide a way to escape the current reality no matter where you are. The thing is, overthinking won't actually fulfill the needs that you're coping with. When you repeat a certain topic over and over and over again in your mind, chances are you're not getting anywhere. If you're not finding a solution or gaining understanding, then your repetitive thoughts will either create frustration or they'll begin to disempower you. And when you notice you're endlessly fantasizing or thinking about things that upset you, here's what I want you to do to kind of break that cycle. Number one, recognize how you feel. What were you feeling before you started spinning off into uncontrollable thoughts? Was it anxiety, anger, feelings of powerlessness, or what is it? Because these are some of the most common causes of overthinking. Number two, ask yourself what you need. What unfulfilled need causes you to feel anxious, angry, or powerless? Is it a need that you can fulfill, like the need for rest, or the need for connection, or is it a need that you need to breathe through and then just let go, like the need to get everything done right now in this moment? Number three, I want you to come back to the present moment. Take a series of deep breaths. Allow your exhale to be longer than your inhale. This sends the message to your nervous system that you're safe and that it can relax. And then number four, take action. What can you do to fulfill your need? Sometimes it's not simple or it can't be fulfilled right now, but you can make a plan. If you need rest or alone time, or conversely, if you need time with people you care about, then schedule those things. Overthinking is simply a sign that you have an unfulfilled need. If you focus on the need underlying the behavior, then you can get helpful information, and that information will leave you empowered to break out of this endless thought loop. I want somebody today to take that thinking cap off. Get out of that repetitive cycle that's getting you nowhere. That's the good news today. Have an amazing day.
Thank you so much. You make me feel better about overthinking. But there's balance, right? You need balance.
Yes.
You need balance. You need balance. Because you're right. And it's just, and you prompted something. When people say, "Oh, they're too sensitive," I'm like, "No, you're insensitive. Why would you say that?"
Right.
What's up with that? Why would you? You know that's going to trigger someone. You know that hurts their feelings. Why would you do that? How can we now on Friday at what time on Facebook Live?
Friday, 3 p.m. Central Standard Time.
All right.
You can go to my Facebook page, Stephen with the PH, Stephen Thurston, and you'll catch me there. Or you can always catch the replay.
I love it. And love you, Reverend Thurston. When will we be preaching at New Covenant again? But everybody can catch him at New Covenant every Sunday when he's not on the road.
Yes, I was just there this past Sunday. I'm off for the next 2 weeks, taking a really quick vacation. And so you can catch me mid-June back at New Covenant Baptist Church in Chicago.
I love it. And love you. Sending much love to your family, to your parents. I love them. Got to take ownership of them, too. Sending you so much love today. I understand. I have a caller. Andre, what's on your mind, sweetie?
Hello, and good morning to you. How are you today?
How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. I'd like to comment on Tim Scott. I really don't think he, and I know there's going to be various opinions, but I don't think he represents a black community. I don't like what he did by going against qualified immunity, which he did, and he doesn't give respect to Reverend Jackson, John Lewis, Dr. King, and those that paved the way for him.
Actually,
and often when he speaks,
well, let me interrupt you there, because what he did do, and not taking up for him, but I just want to be as accurate as I can be. The person that he credits for inspiring him to get into elective politics is Reverend Jackson. He said it was only when he saw him run that he felt that he could, even with his political bent. He said, after I saw him run, I knew that I could do it. And, and Armstrong Williams, the prominent black conservative, he was head of the Young Black Republicans for Jesse Jackson. So I'm going somewhere with this, Andre, and I want you to finish your point. That's where I think things are going to get very interesting in this election cycle.
Well,
Yeah,
you're absolutely right, Santita. I'm not disagreeing with you all. Inspiration is one thing. Dedication is another thing.
I got you.
The best way to show reverence and respect to the person, Mr. Reverend Jackson, is to have policies and do things that hold Reverend Jackson to high esteem. It's not enough to just say he inspired me. Show that he inspired you by emulating him in his policies. That's what I would say about Tim Scott. But he plays to the audience of one. And to me,
Dr. Knight in his own.
Against Donald Trump is not enough. Somebody should, him, in particular, we talking about Tim Scott, he should be outspoken about the ills of Donald Trump. See, these Republicans are hiding and saying, well, I'm going to run again, but they won't publicly denounce him and talk about how scandalous he is. So to me, that shows a lack of authenticity with Tim Scott. I don't think he's authentic. He plays to the white audience, to the Republican audience. And if he acknowledges Reverend Jackson, that's good. That's a thing he should do. But he should acknowledge those that paved the way, because he exists right now because of them. And Tim Scott don't know he's not really that popular. And he could be out there riding in his car at night, and some of these white supremacists or white cops might pull him over and take a stick upside his head and might not know who he is. And then maybe he will feel differently about this qualified immunity. But he's been in a protected class. He's not out in the street like the average Joe is. And, he says these things, but he is a black man, and he can't lose sight of that. I would never vote for him.
Okay.
And he hasn't said anything. He hasn't said anything about any policies that affect black people. He's going along with this MAGA philosophy. It's plain simple. He goes with the MAGA philosophy, and whatever Mitch McConnell, whatever Kevin McCarthy, whatever they say, he kowtows to. He goes to it. He's not an independent thinker. So yes, I'm pouring salt on him because I don't like him. I don't like his policies. show some gratitude, show some appreciation for Reverend Jackson.
Well, I tell you, a lot of black Democrats don't do that with Reverend and Dr. King either. They don't line up. These corporate Democrats don't line up with Reverend Jackson and the black ones. So so I'm just saying.
Well, this is true.
So I'm saying, all I'm saying, Andre, is this, because I have to pivot to Dr. Knighton, is that I think it's going to get very interesting. I'm hearing you and I'm feeling you. I just think it's going to get real interesting as this plays out, because once they introduce the culture wars, I think you're going to see some other things happen. I really do.
Well, I'll just say this quickly because you said since Santita night is coming, so I'm going to make it quick. Yeah, those black people you say don't pay reverence either, but they're not out there supporting and advocating Donald Trump. That's what I want to say.
No, but what they do is
they
support, but Donald Trump is not our only problem. You have people, supporting corporatist policies hurts us all. And I'm saying I think we're going to have to be a little bit more refined in our politics because we put all of our ills on Donald Trump, and I think that's a mistake. The fact is, the corporatist Democrats built themselves on the backs of opposing not just Reverend Jackson, but Reverend Jackson was sent to run for president by us. And so they were opposing us, and what it is that we wanted. So, I
think you're talking about the blue dogs.
No, not just
I think you're talking about the blue dogs.
I'm not just saying the blue dogs. It's not just the blue dogs. It's not just them. These are the fights that we have within the party right now. And so I just think it's, I want us to kind of dot the I and cross the T. Shanina, Dr. Knighton, please stay right there. I want to bring you on the other side. But I felt that, Andre's up thinking this morning and he's dropping so much times, as they say, that I wanted him to be heard and I wanted to engage you, Andre. So I wasn't trying to cut you off. I was just trying to engage you. I like to do that.
Thank you, Santita. I appreciate it, man. You have a good rest of the day.
Now, well, I hope I'll see you at the Rainbow Push Convention. I get my conventions confused. July 15th through the 19th. We'll be having these discussions and many, many more. July 15th through the 19th. Andre, I want to see you there. The 15th through the 19th, everybody. And, of course, see you at Rainbow Push on Saturday morning. So let's get some health information from Dr. Knighton, and then we're going to pivot on to Tim Scott. What do you think about his candidacy? What do you think? I think it's going to get real interesting, everybody. I really do. Back with more of the Santita Jackson Show in just a few minutes. Oh, wow. Dr. Knighton, you have no power.
I don't. I got 5% on my phone this morning, Santita.
Well, you know what? You want to speak to everybody because he knows you. He said, "I'll make room for Shanina Knighton." So you want to say something to people right now before your phone goes because it was 9% a minute ago.
Listen, I just want to remind people today. I'm gonna keep it nice, short, and sweet. So, droplets. As we know, allergies are a real thing. So is flu, so is COVID, so is RSV, so are all of the other things that right now we are experiencing. And people may attribute things to just be one or the other. Just keep in mind people can be sick with more than one thing and to not minimize the impact of one droplet. Meaning it is important that if someone exhibits anything that seems like it's a cold symptom, making sure that hand hygiene does prevail. While hand hygiene is one of the most important things that we understand keeps us safe, it's one of the things that we tend to not do correctly. Remember, only 3 to 6% of people clean their hands correctly. If you do not clean your hands correctly, then you do not do it at all.
Think about the surgeons when you watch your old soap operas, how they were cleaning their hands, they were cleaning everything, and how they would not push the door to the surgical gallery. They back their way in. They don't touch anything. And then somebody else puts on the gloves.
Exactly.
Oh, wow, girl, you're making me look at this in a whole different way.
I know, and I want us to too, Santita. So I'm saying that
State Representative Hardaway's on.
one of the things that I would like to touch upon is going to be hygiene in restaurants and things to look for. And so in particular, we'll talk about menus. We'll talk about people putting the actual condiments right directly touching your food. And all of the other things that make people sick that we don't think about when we're consuming food from public places.
Oh, can we do that tomorrow?
Absolutely, we will.
I need to bring you on a little early. I think that's probably why. In part, that is years ago. My grandmother died in 2017. But years prior to that, she did not like restaurants. She really didn't like public spaces. She really didn't. She felt that they were filthy. And, oh, boy. That is,
you know how that saying go, you don't know what goes on behind the scenes?
Well, she served food at the VA hospital. When you're in the hospital and, the person who comes and brings you your tray, that was my grandmother.
Oh.
And she observed everything.
Mr. McKee's on.
She observed everything, everything. Even, look, when people are unconscious, they can hear you. So I'll be mindful of what you say. And she was also just she was a student. And then, this is the grandmother who went and got her GED and then her associate's degree. Then she got her bachelor's at 61 and then her master's at 65. She was someone.
And something. Something that's so interesting too, because you just made me think about. So in healthcare settings, when they actually put the top over the food tray, I know we talk oftentimes about like people not talking over the food and the importance of that.
Yeah.
But think about the fact that when somebody is in a self-serve line and they're talking over the food, but in a hospital setting, long story short, there's a lid that covers it. So the healthcare worker or the food service worker
Attorney Jones is on. We have 30 seconds.
is not spilling directly onto the food. And so we talk about this often. I know I continue to not crucify buffets, but you know how I feel about buffets. Yes. But this is one of the reasons that I continue to point that forward, because people continue to do that. And I say nothing's wrong with a cookout, nothing's wrong with Thanksgiving.
Stand by, please.
But cause and not talk when we're talking over the when we're eating.
Stand by.
Talking over the food.
Well, hold that thought. You know what? I'm seeing you tomorrow. Love you.
Change the world, change the world.
Absolutely, that's it.
We can change the world. We can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love. It's not too late. Gotta save the children. We can't wait. Let's change the world.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Santita Jackson Show. Boy, oh boy. Megant Financial is our new sponsor. We're so excited about them. Of course, you call them at 708-444-1090. Megant, MEGENT, financial.com. Megant Financial, 708-444-1090. You do not have to have high net worth or a high salary in order to have a financial advisor. Yeah, they focus on middle class and working class people. You do not have a paycheck too small for them to work with you. Please call them. Please, because we all need some guidance, particularly at this time. What happens if we go into default? That's going to wreak havoc on our lives, everybody, and you're going to need some advice. So please stay in touch with them. And, of course, I'm going to reach out to David Hochberg so we can see about how we're going to hold on to our homes through these treacherous times. All right, everybody. We are moving into the campaign 2024. Of course, John Nichols will be on in the next hour, at the bottom of the next hour, talking about his trip through Mississippi and the Deep South as he's looking at what the election 2024 would look like. The late, great Reverend Frank Watkins, who was Reverend Jesse Jackson's longest-serving staff member and one of the architects of his presidential campaigns. In fact, he wanted him to run in 1980. But in 84 and 88, brilliant political mind and strategist. Frank Watkins said, the keys to the kingdom in American politics will be in the South. He said this 50 years ago, 40 years ago, 30 years ago. He said that is it. And the people who hold the keys, and they don't know it, are black people. Wow. So what about Tim Scott? Tim Scott, who was appointed to the U.S. Senate by Governor Nikki Haley. And she said, I'm doing this, as a person of color. I think he's qualified. He's the only black person to serve in both houses of the U.S. Congress, that is the U.S. House of Representatives and the U.S. Senate. And then he won in a landslide when he ran for his seat. So he's very popular in his state now. Hold on. And for those people, I heard you, Andre. I feel you, Andre. For those people who say, oh, my goodness, he's not going to go anywhere in the black community, watch it, because Trump's numbers in the black community went up in 2020. They didn't go down. They went up. And they went up with black men, absolutely. And they went up with black women. And you're watching President Biden, who's having his struggles in this campaign season. And he's having his struggles with black people. Black people want their voting rights protected. They want an executive action. They want the Justice and Policing Act. All of these things are not his fault, but an executive order is within his power. And there's just a lot going on, everybody. It's a very dynamic time, culturally, politically, socially. So what do you think about Tim Scott, who's running on a message of hope? Indeed, black conservatives are pushing him not to be so colorblind. They say, no, we need to talk about color, everybody. And there's just a lot. And you're watching the emergence or the re-emergence of a black Republican. And given the fact that black people are socially conservative, I'm just putting it all out there, everybody. I'm just wondering where this is going to go. I'm wondering what Donald Trump is going to do. I'm wondering when the social issues, these cultural issues are poured into the campaign, where black people are going to line up, where Hispanic people are going to line up, where people of color are going to line up, who are notoriously conservative, socially conservative. Absolutely. And America's very conservative socially. So I'm putting this stuff out there because I want to know what you think about all of this. Hey, Carol Soskin, my sister from another mister out there, out west, out Beverly Hills, sending you so much love. Hey, Mildred. Hey, Dave. Everybody, meet my morning stars on the Santita Jackson and Friends Facebook page. Everybody, like and share, like and share. Carol, Mildred, Dave, Jewel, please like and share this show. And go to Twitter at Santita J. Please go there and go to the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. I need you all to begin to migrate over there. Hey, Stanley Davis, sending you so much love. So glad you're at the hospital and you're recuperating. So, of course, I've got Attorney Darrell Jones. I've got Dwight McKee. And I have got Tennessee State Representative G.A. Hardaway. I've put a lot out there, State Representative Hardaway. I'm just looking at this campaign, and I'm looking at just the whole, I'm trying to look at the 30,000-foot view of everything, and I just think it's going to be, 2024 is going to be really interesting. So what do you make of Tim Scott? I mean, because he won in a landslide in South Carolina, which, quite frankly, kind of surprised me a bit, but, you know, my people are from South Carolina, and I still have a lot of friends in South Carolina, so my father's people, anyway. And so I was surprised, but not really. So what do you make of his candidacy?
Oh, good morning to you, Santita.
I don't mean you to be so exasperated this morning.
Well, you know, we got a heavy load to carry this election season. And the last thing that we need is a Trojan horse, Trojan black horse, I guess. And after it's all said and done, if you want to know where someone's going, you just want to figure out where they're coming from. And if you supported Trump policies, if Lindsey Graham is your buddy, then you can't represent my interests. I consider myself a common sense Democrat. I see nothing common sense about Trump policies, whether it's his social or his economic. This is a guy responsible for putting the conservative, super conservative, I'll call them extremist, Supreme Court justices in place. He couldn't have done it without Tim Scott. So if you're happy with the Supreme Court decisions, then yeah, Senator Scott might be your guy. If you're concerned about the rollback in civil rights, if you're concerned about equal employment, if you're concerned about affirmative action, if you're concerned about black students being able to get into the best schools, if you're concerned about your social programs, whether it's the Social Security benefits, your Medicaid, Medicare benefits, if any of that is important to you, then don't be bamboozled by the talk that you'll hear coming from Tim Scott. He's going to skirt the issues. He's not going to talk directly to the issues. You won't know where he stands on issues, but he'll make it sound good.
State Representative Myers is on.
It's talking about the color of your skin is not important in America. There's something wrong with him. Now, that might be what you look for in your dream, as Dr. King said. But the reality is that skin color is very important to racists and bigots and those who want to dump on African Americans. So I would say that where we acknowledge that Trump was a clear and present danger to America, to democracy, to those in the minority population, Tim Scott is that, I don't know, wolf in black sheep clothing. I'm running out of puns, so I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Oh, yeah. Thank you for turning it back over to me after you do all that. Thank you. Tennessee State Representative G.A. Hardaway, thanks. We've got Wisconsin State Representative Lakeisha Myers. What do you think? You know, when I look at Tim Scott, I'm wondering, once the cultural issues really begin to play large in the 2024 cycle, and I think that they will, I'm wondering where some black folks, because all you have to do is shave off a little bit, right? You don't have to get a chunk of these supporters. You know, my father always talks about peeling off the support. You know, you just get a little bit of here, 1% here, 1% there, and you keep shaving, and you look up and you got 5, and then you got 10. Or 7.5. So, State Representative Myers, what do you make of his candidacy?
I think that we have to look at numbers. Like you said, shaving off is real. When you look at what happened in 2016, I think overwhelmingly, when you look at breaking down the demographics of who voted for Trump, you have to look at how many black men actually turned and voted for Donald Trump.
They did.
I think that's a vulnerable population, if you will. I don't know what it was about the messaging that Donald Trump had, but there were more than enough, like you said, peel that happened, especially within the black male population. I don't know what the draw was for them at that time, but I think when you look at the numbers, black women overwhelmingly vote Democratic and are basically the stronghold for the Democratic Party. When it came to brothers, that was the number. That was the issue. So I guess we have to try to figure out what we can do as far as messaging to understand why they would look and vote Republican in the 2016 election, because I think they are probably who Tim Scott is looking at to do, you know, kind of the peeling off. I think that they are grossly mistaken, and by them I'm thinking the Republicans, that, if we just get a black candidate, then we can get more black votes. I don't think that's a wise choice. I think, of course, Tim Scott has had his missteps as a legislator, of course, and some of his policies that he's, you know, been with over the last few years, I don't see them being wide-reaching enough to get a majority of black voters. So realistically, I think if you remember, what was the guy's name? He sold pizza. He was a part of a pizza company a couple years ago. Was it Herman Cain?
Oh, Herman Cain. Oh, my goodness. He passed away, bless his, the singer.
Yes, he passed away.
Hallelujah.
But yeah, Herman Cain. I think I would look at this.
Not hallelujah to his death, everybody, but you know, he would go to his corporate functions, and part of his shtick was singing. But you know, he's a talented singer, and he was a really entertaining guy. So there you have it.
But again, when we look at tropes that have worked, that people look for, they look for a novelty act. And I think that at some point in time, Tim Scott candidacy becomes a novelty.
Well, Dwight McKee, your thoughts?
I think that there is, because we're so anti-Trump, that it skews our analysis in many situations. I think Tim Scott is a brilliant move on the Republicans' part. I think that what his role is going to be first is to neutralize DeSantis on the Republican side. And then in the general, I think he's setting himself up to be a major player, probably as a vice presidential contender or playing a major role in a Trump administration. And I think his role is to do for black men what Kamala did for black women, is that the wild card for Biden was Kamala. And he was not that popular with black women until he put on the ticket, and then he became a hero to black women. People act as if he had to have done it on his own. There was no natural affinity for Biden from black women until he made the commitment to put Kamala on the ticket. Then they became his biggest advocate. I think Tim Scott's role is to do the same thing for black men who in many ways are more conservative. And when he goes after the left, he simultaneously is playing to the Southern church base. Black men, which are very conservative on issues like abortion, the cultural issues, issues like fiscal responsibility. They're much more conservative, even in black women, believe it or not, on many of the cultural issues. And so, he's a bootstrap kind of guy, and he has an appeal to the Republicans who you talked about peeling off. They're a group of Republicans who see themselves not as racist, but as that bootstrap Booker T. Washington crowd who believes that black people can succeed if they just would take more responsibility for themselves and pull themselves up by their bootstraps. He appeals to that part, that crowd in the Republican Party, and he's already at $22 million and just announced yesterday. And so I think you do yourself a disservice if you try to discount this as a novelty act. I think you're going to be really surprised what he brings to the table. So you want to know not just what he's saying, but who he's saying it to. That's the important part of this conversation.
Call me at 773-763-9278, 773-763-WCPT. I think that this is going to be a very interesting season, Attorney Darrell Jones.
I'm with you on that, Santita, and I'm with the analysis that Dwight just provided. I tell you, I don't undersell Senator Tim Scott. I don't undersell him. I don't expect from him. And I tell you, I think that what he did in his opening salvo, the line that I think is going to resonate is when he's talking about that his family went from cotton to Congress, right, in one lifetime. Mm-hmm. And when I couple what Senator Scott has been saying with what you opened the show with, talking about Frank Watkins talking about the keys to the kingdom are in the South, right, and blacks are having the South. One of the things that we have to remember is that when we're dealing with the general election, and let's say he makes it through the primary because of what he represents, what we're dealing with in the general election, we're not talking about a large percentage point by which that President Biden won by. So if Senator Scott is able to make it through the
primary for the Republican Party. He has that ability, I think, to peel away some of that black support, not only that former President Trump had, but perhaps other black men and probably some black women that will go along with him. And that could spell and could mean a whole lot of trouble. One of the things that I always, hold tail to is that, Senator Scott has come through and he's talking about his strong Christian values. He went to 2 strong Christian universities for his education to, Charlotte, Charleston Southern University and Presbyterian College.
Single mom.
Single mom. He pushes those buttons and then, to placate some of the white Americans that to make them feel that they're not racist, right? He's the one who made the statement that America is not a racist nation, right? And, he's the child of the South and all those. So there's a lot that he has to bring to the table that could be, that could spell trouble. And it's one of the things that, if you are not a Scott supporter, you can't take him lightly because there's a lot to his story and there's a lot that he has himself into.
Absolutely. And I'm thinking that, once these cultural issues are introduced, it's going to be very, very interesting. I mean, because now we've got LGBTQ plus issues, trans issues that are being introduced. You've got the migrants who've been put on the campuses of schools. I mean, I'm wondering, where this can go. Let me go to Pam from the West Side. Pam, how you doing?
Good morning, Santita. How are you?
It's great hearing your voice.
Thank you. I just want to say it's Vice President Kamala, not Kamala. Mm-hmm. And I don't think it's asking too much for us to just pronounce her name correctly. I know they did that a lot with Obama. So it is Kamala, as she's corrected us many times before. And
let me say, in fairness to people who kind of bungle that up, depending, because I know some Kamalas and I know Kamalas. One of my girlfriends, Kamala, her father is from Cuba. Sure. So she's not Kamala, she's Kamala. And then you have Kamala, then you have Kamala. It really depends upon what your frame of reference is linguistically. But, but I hear you, she says Kamala, and I think you should go with that. Absolutely. Like I'm not Santina, I'm Santita. So I'm with you.
Santita, and I got it, and I understand it, yes.
Oh, no, you didn't do that. Other people do.
Sure. But I guess my concern with Tim Scott, if black men want to roll that way, I guess they can go ahead, Santita, with that nonsense. Because right now, we're talking about making sure that we get just basic services for black people and really for all working class families. And the Republican Party, as I've said before, this iteration of the Republican Party, it's a different beast or monster.
Well, hold on, Pam. Stay right there.
Sure.
Hold that thought. I don't want you to stop. But I'm just thinking, I've been saying to you, Dwight, Representative Hardaway, Representative Myers, Attorney Jones, that the discussion about this default is different this time. Because I am of the mind that these people will go into default. And when President Trump at the town hall meetings just said, go into default, there's something that's going on out here. And this morning when I was listening to the news, they were saying that, there's a short-term default and then there's long-term default. The short-term default, we can survive. I'm like, whoa, hold on. Are y'all trying to soften up the ground to get to default? And so I think that if that does happen, people are not only going to blame the Republicans, they're going to lay some of the blame at the feet of the Democrats. And I just think it's just going to get real interesting, Pam. Real interesting. And then when you introduce these cultural issues, oh my gosh! I mean, when you start talking about the migrants on the campuses of these grammar schools, although they're not in the same buildings, that was something that had black parents up in arms. When you start talking about the trans issues, gender affirming care, and which restroom do you use, who plays what sport, I think that's going to be interesting, Pam.
It's very, and then we know the corporate media, of course, is going to help push that messaging more so from the conservative Republican point of view, as opposed to maybe a more liberal or democratic point of view. And I'll just give a case in point, and maybe you want to talk about this, Santita, regarding this big push from the migration once Title 42, I think, expired, correct?
Yes.
There was going to be this big, and the media played it up, this big wave, and as I looked at all the news reports and some of the information I read, that didn't happen. Now, that's not to say that we still don't have an issue, but I think it's an issue that could have been dealt with fairly if Governor Abbott had to just ask and work with the 50 governors of each state, as opposed to shipping people on buses. I mean, there's a chaotic, it's just a mean-spirited way that the Republican Party is operating. And that's not to say that the Democratic Party is perfect.
Well, no, I'm saying everybody's in it, because this is corporatist. I mean, Dwight, you've made the point, and I absolutely agree with it. Stay right there, Pam, and Representative Hardaway, Representative Myers, and Attorney Jones. Dwight, you said that this is really a ruse. This is about bringing, because they're dropping people off, Pam, and they're leaving them here in places so they can become an underpaid workforce, because America was built on stolen land and unpaid workers. Then they moved to workers they barely paid at all. Dwight McKee?
Yeah, I mean, it's three-card Molly, you all. The button is not underneath the hand that you're looking at. It's just about really bringing in a workforce to be able to compete with the third world, which has decided that they're not going to be American colonies anymore. And when you look at all those countries, about 30 now that's committed to getting off the dollar, dealing with international trade in their own currency and using their own workforce to pay themselves, it's going to take a major piece out of this American white supremacist kind of thing and out of what the West has been able to exploit for the last 150 years. And so that's this budget situation. Don't get confused by it. They're going to figure that out. They're going to work that out at the expense of black people and poor people, because the big part of that is they're going to say, in order for you to be able to receive any of this money, you not have to have a job. And this is going to make welfare to work look like a new economic system, almost like convict leasing. So don't get confused by that.
Pam, you got about 30 seconds left. You got them.
I'm here. Thank you.
No, just make your closing thoughts. Yeah.
Oh, sure. I just wanted to ask, what is the end game? Because we have real issues, and I can see those just coming to bubble up here in Chicago. Santita, you know what's going on with the vacant schools that Rahm Emanuel closed, and now they're being reutilized for migrants.
No. First, they're being turned into condominiums, Pam.
Well, yes, that too.
No, that first. They're going to kick them out of there and move them to some barns where they can live cheaply. And these are multi-million-dollar condominiums, or certainly apartments, lofts that rent for $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 a hit. So think about that. Stay right there. No, I want you to speak with Representatives Hardaway and Myers and Dwight McKee and Attorney Darrell Jones during the break. Let's talk about this, everybody. Call me at 773-763-9278. What about Tim Scott? Is this a Trojan horse? And will people buy in? Call me at 773-763-9278. Back with more of the Santita Jackson Show in just a few minutes. Does anyone want to respond to Pam? Pam is one of my most brilliant callers, and she's always thinking, you get up early in the morning. You got a lot on your mind. I don't know how you do it, Pam, but you do it.
Ooh, Santita, but I love you. I love the people you bring to us, Santita. And I remember when you first started on this show, I was so thankful to hear that your voice would be heard, and I knew that you would bring it with the guests that you have. So thank you for that. I don't take that for granted.
Oh, thank you. Well, it's because of you. Because Representative Hardaway, stay right there, Pam, and Representative Myers and Dwight McKee and Dwight McKee, who really helped to inspire me as I moved into radio almost 20 years ago, and Attorney Jones. It's because you need information. We're not crazy out here, Representative Hardaway. We're not. You got. Well, Pams don't grow on trees. Let me say that first. But people think and people have ideas. People have thoughts, Representative Hardaway. I mean, and given what we have experienced in this country, we are not stupid, Representative Hardaway. You can smell a wat.
Yeah, you're right on point, Santita, as usual. The fact that we've had years, decades of campaigning and appealing to low info, no info, NO, and then we've got the informed voters, the majority of the time, whether it's Republicans or Democrats, black or white, the wish for elected officials is to have the low info voters and the no info voters. And it's that messaging that the Republicans are doing where they can draw those two segments.
Attorney Hoffler and Attorney Fancher are on. All lines are busy. Please let me know if you want me to keep Pam on or not.
Their messaging is appealing to the emotions. It's appealing to these issues that you don't think out completely about how it affects your total life, but it's the old adage that sometimes folks go to the polls and they don't remember what you said, but they remember how you made them feel.
Well, no, there's
and
that.
It could be those issues about the protection of your family, your children. It can be those issues about crime. It can be those issues about job loss, opportunities for entrepreneurship. Democrats have to do a better job of developing a platform and then being able to message that platform to black folks, black men and black women. And until that happens, we'll continue to see not just black folks, but the Hispanic population, Latino Hispanic population that is starting to be more diverse in their political views. It's a matter of messaging because people are people. We endure some of the same problems day to day. It's just that black folks, I don't care who you are, you can say you don't see it, but systemic racism is real. Misogyny is real. It's systemic, and that's the way this country was formed, for the benefit of white men, primarily rich white men. And if you're still black, if you're still a woman, black or white, then you're still struggling in America.
No question about that. Pam, I'm going to have to let you go, but I wanted you to make your final comment.
I always appreciate it. Yes, the struggle continues. And yes, and we're still always just in a state of anxiety, on guard, and just always wondering what the next move is. And it gets wearing on you, but I know we have to continue, Santita, but a lot of people are apathetic. And a lot of people are trying to give up, or wanting to give up. And there has to be a message that speaks to them. And I wish the Democratic Party would bring it. I mean, stop running ads. I know it takes money, but, I mean, just do some unconventional things, non-traditional.
All we have to do is look. If they follow Reverend's roadmap, they'd be all right, but they're corporatists. I mean, these folks are singing from the same sheet of music. They're just, they're in different sections, Republicans and the Democrats. Dwight?
Yeah, can I say this to Pam before she leaves?
Yes, very quickly.
Yes, I'm here. Thank you. I'm here.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, Pam, if you want to have a point of reference for Tim Scott, look at what Herschel Walker pulled off. And he was basically a buffoon. He had no credibility, had problems with his family. His dad, his son told people that his father was a crook, and he still badly lost. So if you take that mentality and put it behind a guy like Tim Scott, who is legitimate, who is articulate, who is profound in many instances, and to get to speak of.
Likeable and culturally he resonates with you, Pam.
Yeah.
When these culture wars come out, he's going to say some things that are going to make you say, you know, they're right. I'm telling you. Because you remember who did that? Alan Keyes did that here against Obama. Alan Keyes had you about 80, 90% of the way in. He had you because culture is so important.
1 minute.
Dwight, I got 30 seconds for you, then I got to let Pam go because we have no lines.
Sure.
Oh, that was my point. I'm saying that if you think
thank you, Santita, to the panel.
Love you, girl.
Okay.
Dwight, 30 seconds
Love
before
you
we go. Oh, my Pam. Pam, I want you to be at that convention, July 15th through the 19th. Okay. Dwight?
Is that Herschel Walker had a major impact in his little state of Georgia and almost won with everything going against him.
30 seconds.
Tim Scott is the antithesis of that. Brings real things to the table and has a budget of $25 million that he's just playing with now. That will be up to about $100 million before the next 2 months are out.
10 seconds.
What he got to say.
Stand by.
And so don't discount him.
Stand by.
Hold on.
He's
Give us that. Give us that on the air, Dwight. Hold on. We're coming up. Stand by.
We can change the world, change the world, change the world. Yes, we can. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world. I am breathing.
The Santita Jackson Show on Tuesday, May 23rd, 2023. I'm Santita Jackson coming to you from WCPT 820, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, and AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. Meet my morning stars on the Santita Jackson and Friends page. That's right, on Facebook, and Santita Jackson Show. That's our YouTube channel, and at Santita J on Twitter. Now, please go to Santita Jackson and Friends, everybody, and then pivot over to my YouTube channel. I can't accept anybody on the Santita Jackson page. That's just a landing page. You have to open that up in order to get another page. I need you to move on over from Santita Jackson to Santita Jackson and Friends. Okay, please go on over there. All right, everybody. We're talking about Tim Scott and his impact, his potential impact on the 2024 election cycle. What do you think? We've got a tremendous panel. We've got Tennessee State Representative G.A. Hardaway, who's weighing in. Wisconsin State Representative Lakeisha Myers, who's weighing in. Dwight McKee, Dr. D, and brilliant social scientist and brilliant lawyer, Attorney Darrell Jones, chairman of the Transformative Justice Coalition. Of course, he will be on the air later on today with Attorney Barbara Arnwine on WOL in D.C. at 12 noon Eastern Standard Time, 11 o'clock our time. You don't want to miss that. And then, of course, C.K. Hoffler will be on at 11 o'clock Eastern Time, 10 o'clock our time on WAOK. Former president of the National Bar Association and chair of Rainbow Push, legal analyst on Court TV. I don't know how she does it all. And then, of course, the brilliant Mark Fancher, attorney Mark Fancher, the author of the book, The Negroes of Friends Village. The Negroes of Friends Village. I encourage you all to get it. Let us talk about Tim Scott and what his impact could be as Trump's numbers with black men rose in 2020. I mean, a lot of black men like him, and then some black women liked him too. And what do you think is going to happen with Tim Scott as these culture wars become preeminent? Call me at 773-763-9278. If the line is busy, just continue to call, continue to call, continue to call. I got some of these headlines, everybody. Well, last night, did we see LeBron James play his last game? I don't know. I hope not. But the Nuggets swept the Lakers 4-0, everybody. The Nuggets, at the last minute, LeBron James couldn't make that basket sink, and the Nuggets took it 113-111. So we will see if this is the last hurrah. I don't think so, everybody. But congratulations to the Nuggets, the first time in franchise history that they have made the finals. The first time in franchise history, everybody. And tonight we're going to see, will the Heat sweep the Celtics? They're leading in their series 3-0. We'll know something tomorrow morning, everybody. In the NHL, the Panthers are leading in their series 3-0. Oh, they won last night. Panthers won. The Hurricanes, nothing. The Golden Knights will be playing the Stars tonight. Vancouver leads that series 2-0 in the WNBA. The Dream will be playing the Lynx. And in Major League Baseball, the Giants 4, the Twins 1. The Guardians 3, the White Sox 0, and the Mets will be playing the Cubs today, everybody. E. Jean Carroll has asked the judge to amend her initial defamation case against former President Donald Trump following comments he made during a CNN town hall meeting. Millions of people in Mexico have been warned to prepare for a possible evacuation due to increased activity from the country's most dangerous active volcano. And Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen reinforced her warning to Congress Monday that it only has a little time left to address the debt ceiling before the nation defaults on its obligations. And now you're hearing discussions about many people in the banking sector say it's different this time. Will we have a short-term default or a long-term default? We will see. In the meantime, we want you to make sure that your money is right. I have a new sponsor, Megant Financial, everybody. Their number is 708-444-1090, 708-444-1090. What I love about them is that they do not only go and instruct you in financial literacy if you are wealthy, if you have high net worth. No. They target middle-class people. They want to be the financial advisors to working-class people. You don't have a paycheck that's too small to be saved. You should start building into your income, into your working life, a comfortable retirement. It will be upon you before you know it. So everybody, please, 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 please call them at 708-444-1090, 444-1090, become financially literate, and get a financial advisor look, you don't have to be rich to have one. And then, of course, if you need to save your home, and I think that's going to be more of an issue as we look at default, as we look at these really, really tough times. If you're a first-time home buyer, I want you to know that you can buy a house even in this environmental climate. Now, first-time home buyers technically are those who have not owned a home over the past 3 years. Call Team Hochberg, everybody. They're your trusted local lender. They saw that first-time home buyers, they only made up 26% of the market last year, down from 34% the year before, and numbers that were much higher in prior years. So Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac said, okay, what we're going to do is incentivize first-time home buyers. We need to turn these numbers around, everybody, with substantially lower rates. Now, these rates can be raised at any time, so you need to take advantage of this program right now. If you live in the Chicago area and the total income of those who had your household is beneath $105,700, well, this program might be for you. So call Team Hochberg at 855-56-DAVID, 855-56-DAVID, and see if you qualify. You can go to 56david.com and go through their website and see, but I think you should give them a call. Let them know what your financial situation is, and I think that they can help you. 855-56-DAVID, 855-56-DAVID. Now is the time for you to start building generational wealth, not just for yourself, but for your children and your children's children. Remember, homeowners beget other homeowners. So call Team Hochberg at 855-56-DAVID, 855-56-DAVID, or go to 56david.com. Let's talk about Tim Scott. We've got some really interesting ideas from Tennessee State Representative G.A. Hardaway and Wisconsin State Representative Lakeisha Myers, Transformative Justice Coalition Chair, Attorney Darrell Jones, Dwight McKee, noted social scientist, Attorney Mark Fancher, and Attorney C.K. Hoffler join us. Everybody call me at 773-763-9278. I want to know what your thoughts are. Let me start with you, Attorney Mark Fancher. Your thoughts about Tim Scott, and particularly as these culture wars become more prominent, because he was appointed to the U.S. Senate, but then he won in a landslide. So he is popular, with a broad swath of people in his home state. What do you think about this candidacy?
I don't think anything about it. I don't waste my time thinking about candidates of that kind, or any candidates for that matter. I think that for the broad masses of oppressed people, particularly people of African descent, we really need to spend less time worrying about personalities and individual politicians and working more, diligently and becoming more vigilant about ensuring that on a mass level our people have a real fundamental understanding of not what electoral politics is about, but what world politics is about. And what it's about is about power. And the fact is that the entire electoral system has been rigged to ensure that our people will never achieve liberation, ever. It is engineered in a way to ensure that power remains in the hands of multinational corporations, a small group of elite families. And they will have us running after different candidates, taking shots at particular candidates, engaging in folly. We waste a lot of time worrying about these kinds of things. And I think that if people have a fundamental understanding that power comes from resources, it doesn't come from which office you occupy, it doesn't come from how much money you have personally, it comes from having control of resources, oil, mineral wealth, and other things. Once we begin to understand that, and that the entire system has been rigged to ensure that real power remains in the hands of other people, then we become more clear about what our agenda is. And we don't have to worry anymore about individuals and who's running and what they're doing and what they're saying. People on a mass level are able to look at these people and place them within the context of their own analysis, their own understanding of what the political dynamics are in the world, and then to make intelligent decisions about them. If our people were educated in that way, if they really understood how things work, then we wouldn't have to worry about whether the Democratic Party is going to engage in proper messaging. We wouldn't have to worry about whether this is going to be done or that's going to be done. All that these candidates would have to do is to appear and say a few things, and people would be able to peg them right away and say, oh, I know where this person has come from. It doesn't fit into my political analysis. It doesn't fit into my political agenda. I'll make my own decision. Nobody has to message to me. I already know. I got this person figured out because I'm dead set on an agenda that doesn't even involve electing anybody. And I think that's really where we need to be. Our agenda should have nothing to do with the system, which is designed to ensure that we remain powerless. Our agenda should be completely and totally focused on achieving power for the powerless. And specifically for African people, it means achieving the control of the African continent. In just a few days, on May 25th, well, actually just 2 days from now, it will be what is regarded as African Liberation Day. This is a day when globally the African world rededicates itself to ensuring that it gets control of Africa and all of its resources, its oil, its minerals, all of the things that it holds most dear as those things that they need in order for everybody to be free. And that's what we need to be focused on during this month, as opposed to silly people who run for office.
Attorney C.K. Hoffler, a couple of minutes so we can. What do you think? You're down there in Atlanta, right out of South Carolina.
Right. Well, I will say this. I met when we were advocating for the passage of the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. We met with Senator Scott, Tim Scott, and Lindsey Graham. Now that Ben Crump, myself, Chris Stewart, George Floyd's family, all of us met. We went to the White House. We had a day on the Hill, and we met with this because we were seeking aggressively to fill the gap. To try and because they were Senator Cory Booker was doing a yeoman's job, a really, really phenomenal job at trying to bring closure to the remaining issues. And we were sort of stagnating on a couple of issues. So I had the opportunity to meet and spend a few hours with Tim Scott. I will say this, while I took strong exception to some of his messaging and what he was saying, I will tell you this, he is very charismatic. He is very, very he will preach as some state lawmakers or politicians do. And he will say, he does use, as a black man growing up in this and that, he does preach that. His conclusion is simply different. So I don't think that we can count him out. I don't think that we could say, oh, well, he's so ridiculous. I don't think that at all. Because having met with him when his message was not as refined and we were behind closed doors, so nobody was recording exactly what was being said in the negotiation process, I found that while I completely disagreed with his messaging, that he is a force to be reckoned with. I didn't like it because of my politics, but he's a force to be reckoned with. So I don't think that we can underestimate him at all, and I think that people need to be prepared that he's going to launch a formidable campaign.
And my concern is what happens when the culture wars are launched. I mean, Representative Hardaway, black people are socially conservative. And a lot of the cultural issues that are needed right now, black folks don't line up with progressives on. They don't. We just do not for a whole lot of reasons. And so, I was cautioning a friend of mine who's a big progressive white guy, and he was talking about the Christian right wing. I said, be careful with that. I said, because you're talking about black people now. No. I said, yeah. I'm black. I've been in this skin a long time. Trust me, I know my people. I know the church. I was raised in a church. Dwight and I come from the same church. Women didn't wear pants. That's a hard thing for me to even think about doing now. It's just, just didn't. My pastor, who just died 4 years ago.
No,
couldn't.
Not didn't, couldn't.
Couldn't. You were forbidden, right? And we didn't mind. He said, no, immodesty. If you start wearing pants, you're going to go from slacks to jeans to tight jeans to shorts to no, we're not going to have that here. And that was like, okay, and that's just for example, Representative Hardaway. And so I'm just trying to play this out in my mind, and having people from South Carolina. My father's from South Carolina, that. And I still have relatives there, and I still have friends there. And I'm like, y'all voted for him. Maybe not the majority of black people, but a nice chunk. And I'm wondering, how is this going to play out, Representative Hardaway? And I really wanted to hear from you because you're in Memphis. You know how we are because black people are culturally Southern, even if we're not geographically Southern. That's just how it is. I'm wondering how this will play out. Representative Hardaway.
Yes, Santita, there are several things going on here. And I'll start with, because Floyd and Tyree Nichols, they come to mind when we're talking about how at times my Republican colleagues are able to be in touch with their humanity. They unanimously supported a resolution that the Black Caucus put forward in Tennessee, and condemning those acts of violence against those black men. But then they turn right around and put two black men out of the state legislature merely because they were voicing the concerns of the parents of children who had been murdered in their own schoolhouse. So there's these things that's hard to figure out. I'm reminded I can't think of who it was that spoke earlier about how important it is for we're back to the informed voter. But the problem is that most of the voters are not informed. That's the best wish for those of us who have serious concerns about where this country is going, based upon whether you're led there by your leadership or whether you drive there pushing your leadership. It was Thomas Jefferson who made it clear that the way that this country, this democracy is set up is based upon the informed voter. One of his quotes, whenever the people are well informed, they could be trusted with their own government. He recognized the danger of the low info voter, LOW, and the no info voter, NO. He recognized it as he was helping to author the Constitution that governs us even today. So that this system of democracy and the freedoms that we enjoy, they have pitfalls. And if you don't know what you're voting for, you don't know who you're voting for, if you don't know the issues, you don't know the individuals, and you're falling for the slick ads, you're falling for the endorsements of folks that you don't really know well, but you like them, then, yeah, we're going to end up with problems in the White House, problems in the State House, the county seat, City Hall, because we need to be more informed. So we're back to what should the strategy be for Democrats to counter the danger of a Tim Scott, similar to what the dangers were with Herman Cain and Alan Keyes. But let's keep in mind, there's a factor X out here called Donald Trump. He doesn't have a nickname for Tim Scott yet, and he hasn't weighed in on him. But Tim Scott is only going to go as far as Donald Trump lets him go. Tim Scott has got to get through that primary.
But what if he puts him on the ticket?
Get through that.
Hold on. What if he puts, because one of the group that Donald Trump has not gone after have been Black Americans. He's gone after Africa. You know, we don't need to rehash those comments. They were so insulting. But he's been very, very careful. And I think scientific. He's been surgical. He's been very precise in terms of those people who he has gone after. And it's not been lost upon me that he has not given Black folks a nickname, Black Americans. And I think that that's a calculation, right?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm not giving him credit. I'm just saying, I'm trying to step back and see what I'm seeing.
I just don't, yeah, and you have to be prepared for all the possibilities. Mm-hmm. And that ticket would end up, in my mind, it would end up a ticket of Tim Scott versus Kamala Harris. And I just don't think you're going to pull any Black women away from Kamala Harris. And you may pull some Black men along with Tim Scott, but he's going to undergo that national scrutiny that's unique to the presidential campaign, and even more vicious thanks to Donald Trump and the way that he treats his opposition. So he's going to be a different guy by the time he finishes the primary. And I just don't think he's going to be that same Tim Scott that everybody knows and loves.
The sweet, hopey, changey Tim Scott. We're going to see. Still stay right there. And we're coming up with John Nichols, but I want to get closing thoughts from each one of you on the other side as we as John Nichols tells us what he's seeing in Mississippi and in the South as we get into 2024. Everybody, we're here. 2024 is right here, right now. A year from now, we could conceivably have an official nominee of both parties, but then again, maybe not. We'll see. Call me at 773-763-9278. Back with more of the Santita Jackson Show. I hope that you'll be with us at the Rainbow Push International Conference, July 15th through the 19th. July 15th through the 19th. You don't want to miss it. We're going to have conversations just like these, and we're going to have Megget Financial. They're going to be doing a financial literacy clinic for you. That's right. So I want you to get signed up for that. Call 773-FREEDOM or go to rainbowpush.org. Back with more of the Santita Jackson Show in just a minute. Okay, everybody, you know we're on Facebook Live, so what do y'all think? And
I think GA is right. And that's the point I was trying to make with the novelty aspect of Tim Scott. Mm-hmm. Not that he's disintelligent as a person or as a candidate,
sure,
as a statewide office holder in South Carolina. When you go through the beating process that will surely come because he's an enemy of Donald Trump right now, Donald Trump is going to use his same old tactics, and what happens on the other side of that? How does he wash out in that process? What is the nickname going to be for him? How will he activate his base, who are wholly racist? Let's be clear. And how do they respond to him as a black candidate on the other side of that? You have to remember the Tiki Torch people who are voting, the folks who do not wish to see another black person in any high political office. Think of the anti-Obama people and how they activated themselves and how we got a Donald Trump. You have to figure out that's his base. And how is Tim Scott going to fare after those people finish with him?
Anybody have
Well, see, I see it a little bit. See, I want to respond to that. I don't see him as an enemy of Donald Trump. I see him as a stalking horse for Donald Trump. It's interesting that
Mr. Nichols is on.
does not have a nickname for Tim Scott because there is a kind of black person that Donald Trump admires and also admires Donald Trump. If you look at the black men who've dealt with him, Jim Brown, Kanye, Don King, there is a certain kind of black man that appeals to Donald Trump. And there's a certain kind of black man that Donald Trump likes to be around and to deal with. And I think that he does not see Tim Scott as an enemy. He sees Tim Scott as an ally who can neutralize the image of his racism and bring out and expand the base beyond his mega crowd into the conservative black community. And that's why I think at some point he's going to be a legitimate vice presidential nominee, a candidate with Donald Trump. And he will have the effect on black men, I was saying, that Sister Harris had on black women. And all he needs to bring in is 10%, 15% more of that crowd, and he can win that nomination again. That's my read.
I agree. You know, I did not in my comments, I just couldn't say the words Herschel Walker because it just brings up, I was going to start, hyperventilating and stuff. But being here in Georgia,
1 minute.
It's just an inconceivable notion. Herschel Walker almost won. He almost won. He was not palatable on any level from my standpoint. We don't want to revisit that. He lost it. I'm over with it. Tim Scott, I'm not a fan of his. I am not a fan of his. But if Donald Trump really wants to shake up the party, really wants to do something, really wants to make a difference, which he likely is in a process to do.
30 seconds.
Legal issues, and while they may not be affecting his base, they're affecting some people, and so he's going to have to neutralize that. So what better group to try to capture than black men?
Well, look, let's be very clear. He was coming from the
10 seconds.
Who is it? The Texan. Oh my goodness, Ross Perot. He was going to run
Stand by.
on his ticket in 2020. In 2000.
We can change the world, change the world, change the world. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Santita Jackson Show, July 15th through the 19th. We'll be having conversations like these at the Rainbow Push International Conference. I hope that you will be there. Of course, John Nichols is with us. He is in Mississippi and looking at election 2024. But John Nichols, I always bring in the middle of these conversations because they kind of converge. We're talking about Tim Scott. We've been talking about him and the impact that he can have. We've got, of course, sociologist Dwight McKee. We've got attorney C.K. Hoffley. We've got Tennessee State Representative G.A. Hardaway, our very dear friend and brother beloved, and our sister beloved. We lost her to Milwaukee. She was from Chicago, but whatever. Wisconsin State Representative Lakeisha Myers, and the brilliant author and attorney Mark Fancher, and then brilliant radio host and of course, chairman of the Transformative Justice Coalition. He'll be on the air today at 12 noon Eastern Standard Time on WOL. Attorney Daryl Jones, and of course, Attorney C.K. Hoffler will be on WAOK at 11 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. Whew. Will you be on Court TV this week at all, C.K.?
I will be on Court TV tomorrow.
Okay.
And I was on yesterday. So usually I'm on now twice a week, sometimes 3 times a week according to my schedule.
Just send me a text and let me know when you're going to be on so I can let the audience know. CK, will you? Oh.
I know. I will send you a text. I will send you a text.
But, forever. But all right.
I know. In between everything, I try to remember.
Well, you know what? We've been having a discussion. It's really it's almost like an intellectual exercise about not an intellectual exercise. We're living in a really very fascinating time. It's a fascinating time to be alive. You know, a lot of things that have been hidden down through the years are now being revealed in every realm of life. And so it is in politics. And so now you have got Dwight McKee put forth the idea that, wait a minute, a lot of people they're in their feelings about Tim Scott, but I'm mindful of the fact that he won in a landslide when he ran. He was appointed by Nikki Haley, but then when he ran, and I know that I believe he has a certain cultural appeal to a chunk of black people. And he doesn't have to get the majority of black voters. He does not. That's not what Donald Trump got, but he got a hunk of black men. He did. And he got more black women in 2020 than he got in 2016. I'm just looking at the numbers, y'all. I'm not, I just, 1 and 1 gives you 2, not 2.1, not 1.9. It's 2. That's what it is. And I think we have to be real honest about what it is that we're looking at, just electorally, because John Nichols, there's a lot going on. And, I wanted you to hear, as you are in Mississippi, if you don't mind, just very quickly, and you all give me 30 seconds, 30, please 30. And if you hear my voice, I've got to pivot. What your thoughts are about Tim Scott and the role of the South. That's right. You can take either or in 2024. Tennessee State Representative G.A. Hardaway.
Well, Santita, I think if we look at the role of the South, we're going to have to kind of wait and see how all these electoral populations in these individual states are playing. One thing we want to keep in mind is those populations are changing. Those attitudes are changing. The demographics are changing. So we're a little early to try to figure out which states are going to go which way. We know that there's been some movement from California to some of the southern states, some movement to some of the southern states from some of the northern states. So that there's a whole lot more of research that we need to do to figure out how those electoral votes are going to play out. But I want to go back to Herschel Walker, because that's probably the most embarrassing moment in American politics, was Herschel Walker nearly winning the Senate in Georgia. The same Herschel Walker that has done all these things. His son couldn't support him. And he revealed quite a bit about Herschel Walker that just confirmed, as one of our speakers said earlier, that he was a buffoon. But the reason he was able to move forward is he had the support of Donald Trump. So I come back to, where would Donald Trump be on Senator Scott during the process for the primary? If Tim Scott becomes a threat to Donald Trump, if he moves into a position to where he moves up to be the primary challenger to Donald Trump, he's going down, because I can't see him intellectually bowing to Trump's foolishness. So he's going to have to be a man. It doesn't matter whether he's going to be a black man or what. He's going to have to be a man. I don't see him being the pet Negro that Georgia, in that Georgia race with Herschel Walker, I don't see Tim Scott bowing to that. I think that he's going to be who he is, and he's going to respond to some of Trump's insults and foolishness and lies, and that's going to drive the vote and the attitudes of the Trumpsters, and it's going to follow Tim Scott into not just the rest of the Republican primary, but into the general election if he was put on the ticket. I don't see Donald Trump elevating a black man to be on the ticket with him.
Let me tell you something.
I think he's a black man.
I disagree. I think he's transactional. And the fact is, people fight like hell during primaries. That is what you do. And then you know what the mature people do? They put it aside. I mean, the Obama-Hillary Clinton fight was not a pretty one. And there were a lot of hurt feelings and anger moving into his administration, and it kept on going. But guess what? They knew they needed to work it out optically and actually, and they did. Folks do that. Folks fight during these primaries, and then they just keep on going because I have something I want to do, and I have something I want to do, and people get going. But stay right there because I want to bring on John Nichols. Let me get, because I think we need to continue to talk about that because you understand politics better than anybody on this panel. Representative Hardaway, and folks fight, they do, and then they go, oh, okay. But John Nichols, you're in Mississippi. Oh no, I'm sorry. To be fair, let me let you respond very quickly. Then I got to bring on John.
Well, you're absolutely correct. We can't be precise in our predictions, but just knowing what I know, I don't know Tim Scott personally well. I've met him, brief conversations, but I just don't see him taking the insults and the abuse that Trump would put upon him if he became a threat. If he's not a threat, I agree that he would be a valuable asset to a Trump ticket. Now, Trump might accept him in that way, but I think Trump is more likely to sit down and look at DeSantis and look at some of these guys that he could feel empowered to have as vice president and tell them everything that he wanted them to do, and they would do it. I think he learned a lot in his last selection that he needs a weak vice president.
Well, I mean, George H.W. Bush showed you that. That's how we got, what's his name from Indiana? Excuse me, the one who had the blank stare.
Dan Quayle.
I mean, yes, Dan Quayle. I mean, my goodness, Dan Quayle made him assassination proof. I'm sorry. Yes, I did say that. I was like, ain't nobody gonna touch this joker. Because no one wants him and his crazy wife who induced labor so she could go on and take her bar exam. I'm sorry. Okay, John Nichols. I just wanted to give you a taste of what we've been talking about since 6:30. I mean, because it fits into what because I think this discussion is going to get amplified during this election cycle. Because, I don't think that Democrats can just say, we got the black vote anymore. I don't think that's nobody can say anything. We just saw that with Brandon Johnson here. Dwight said that this was an ideological race. There's some white people who you did not expect to vote for Brandon who voted for Brandon. And there's some black folks who voted for Vallis who you did not expect to go for Vallis. Boom. Blow all that out. So what are you seeing on your tour of the South right now?
Let's focus. Let's draw out of this discussion, and then we can talk a little bit about South. They're very related. The reason that it is unlikely, not certain, but unlikely, that Donald Trump would pick Tim Scott as a vice presidential candidate, unless Tim Scott gets to a very high level and it becomes sort of necessary because they're so competitive. But the reason it's unlikely is because Donald Trump has the South. The fact of the matter is that in the South and in the border states extending all the way beyond Kentucky and Tennessee out through Arkansas, Missouri, even into Oklahoma,
these are Trump hotbeds. I mean, he's winning these states by 25% of the vote. He's winning them as big as he does the interior West. And so the notion that Donald Trump would pick a Southerner, be it Nikki Haley or Tim Scott or any other Southern candidate, to strengthen his ticket is unlikely because he's already strong in these places. And trust me, as I travel around through these states, it is clear that Democrats can sometimes win in these places, but it is very, very unlikely that in 2024, Trump is going to lose Southern states.
Really?
So when Trump looks to his vice president, yeah, very unlikely.
Why?
Now, he may, Georgia and Virginia being the exceptions.
Why?
Well,
Why
remember, he's already won them twice by 20 or 25% of votes.
Okay, okay. No, but because he's touring the South now. He's down in Mississippi. So what are you seeing?
Yeah. Well, I just say, look,
we have a caller.
He has solidified his support among white folks, like it or not. Not all of them, of course. And as Dwight and others are saying, he's made inroads, especially with black men, somewhat with black women. That's not the whole of the story, of course. There's a lot more going on. But Trump is strong in the South, and he will continue to be strong in the South. To suggest differently would be to fall into the traps that some people fell into in 2000, where they assumed that Trump would be weakened after 4 years in office. But in fact, he ran very strong in many of the places where he had previously been strong. Not all of them, but in many of them. So this becomes the dynamic that's important as we talk about Tim Scott getting into the race. Tim Scott is going to make a tremendous impression on a lot of Americans if he can be heard. And frankly, my sense is that Tim Scott could, if things go right for him, benefit from being attacked by Donald Trump, i.e., that if he gets into a real debate with Donald Trump, comes back strong in that debate, as I think he is very capable of doing, that isolates DeSantis. And remember, DeSantis is coming into this race right now looking much weaker than people thought he would be. And so there is a possibility that someone else emerges as the real alternative to Trump. And as I look across all of these potential candidates, it's not going to be Mike Pence. Mike Pence can, barely communicate beyond his core base. It's not going to be Asa Hutchinson or one of these folks. And frankly, I don't think it's going to be Nikki Haley. I think the reality is that Tim Scott has real potential to emerge as the alternative to Trump. And what a fascinating moment that might be. Not one to be underestimated. Now, if I can pivot and talk a little more about the South, though, and at some of these places that I've been of late, I'm talking to you today from northern Mississippi. And what I can tell you is this. There is a real disconnect between the National Democratic Party and the Democratic Party on the ground. And so the fact of the matter is that the likelihood that the national ticket in 2024 is going to win in southern states, in most southern states, is very slim. The possibility that Democrats could win elections this year in 2023 in some of these southern and border states, that's actually quite real. Andy Beshear, I was just in Kentucky the other day. Andy Beshear is running very strong for re-election in Kentucky as a Democrat. So that's a state that had a double-digit Trump advantage. But yet Andy Beshear is holding his own. Now, his opponent, Daniel Cameron, is the Attorney General of the state, a black man. And so you're going to see some of the tests of many of these theories, many of these things we're talking about as regards to Tim Scott. You see some tests of that in Kentucky in November this year. And Daniel Cameron move a substantial portion of the black vote, any measurable portion, in Louisville and some of the other parts of the state, into the Republican column. If he does, that's an interesting lesson as regards Tim Scott.
Well, hold that thought, because Daniel Cameron is not, he doesn't resonate as profoundly in the black community as Tim Scott does. And I think that's a critical difference, right? And it's not because he has a white wife. He's more, he just doesn't resonate as profoundly.
Well, there's other factors. There's other factors as well. Remember, it was Daniel Cameron as Attorney General of Kentucky who had the Breonna Taylor case.
Mm-hmm.
And look at the differences. By the way,
he lost a lot of credibility.
So right.
A lot of credibility.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And let me emphasize here, I hope soon that you'll have Keith Ellison, the Attorney General of Minnesota, on the show.
Mm-hmm.
Because Keith just wrote a book on trying the murderers of George Floyd. And Keith was the Attorney General of Minnesota, took on that George Floyd case in that same year of 2020 and got convictions, major convictions, right? He and his team. Now, then you look down in Kentucky, the Breonna Taylor case. Daniel Cameron takes it on. Not only doesn't he get major convictions, he refuses to prosecute the officer that shot Breonna Taylor, the one that they clearly have said his shots are the ones that killed Breonna Taylor. And he basically refused to prosecute anyone for shooting at Breonna Taylor. He brought a couple charges against somebody because, quote unquote, it disturbed the neighbors, right? So the Daniel Cameron case situation here is a weaker one, but still we watch it, right? And we watch Kentucky because if Andy Beshear wins in Kentucky, that's a very interesting, significant sign for the Democrats. Andy Beshear is a managerial Democrat, but one who does a very good job. He's very humane, reaches out to people from all different backgrounds. He's taken some courageous steps along the way. Very interesting to watch there. And I want to turn people's attention also to Mississippi. In Mississippi, the state has a Republican governor who makes Donald Trump's scandals and problems look almost mild. Tate Reeves, the governor of Mississippi, is in so much trouble on so many levels. Not the sexual stuff, but corruption, scandals, neglect, mistreatment. Tate Reeves is a mess of a governor. And he has an opponent in Brandon Presley, a state public service commissioner from northern Mississippi, who has a long history of winning in areas that are pretty conservative, building multiracial coalitions. He's very populist. He takes on the utility companies. He takes on the corporations. At the same time, he's somewhat socially conservative, which Mississippi is. And this guy, Brandon Presley, right now in polls, he's polling even with Tate Reeves. And I want to tell you one final thing that makes this a little interesting. Brandon Presley is Elvis Presley's cousin. And it's a very interesting story. And so the Mississippi race is one that I really invite people to pay attention to, and I'll tell you why. One of the reasons Democrats have done so poorly in so much of the South is because the National Democratic Party has neglected the South. It just assumes it cannot win, right? And sometimes that's true. Sometimes it's
but they don't even try. They don't even try because the bulk of Reverend Jackson's registrations came out of the South. They don't even try, and that is shameful. They have given up the South.
And you're right, and look at the circumstance now that has developed in the South. In southern states, tracing back to Reverend Jackson's organizing and mobilization drive, black voters now vote at the same percentage as white voters, and black women vote at a higher percentage than any other voters.
We over-index.
In these southern states.
That's right.
Exactly. And one of the reasons why the Democratic parties in the South are alive, why they survive, even amidst all the neglect, is because black women keep them that way. I was with a couple of folks yesterday, woman who's the chair of the NAACP in Lafayette County, Mississippi. And I have to tell you, this determination, this willingness to keep fighting and keep building that party up. They are nominating candidates for every office. They are excited about Brandon Presley. They think he's a strong statewide ticket leader. And they are genuinely believing that this year they could win in Mississippi. They preface it by saying prayerfully they believe that they can win. But this is something real. And National Democrats, this is what I'll be writing about, National Democrats in this off year of 2023, they need to get resources down to these folks in places like Mississippi and Louisiana, which also has a gubernatorial race. You know, the folks I was talking to yesterday I was in Oxford, Mississippi, which is a college town. The folks I was talking to, I said, you must have a headquarters. You must have an office. They said, we don't have the money for an office. We don't, and in many of these rural towns in the Delta, we don't have the money to keep an office open. Even when we, pass the hat, it's not possible. In some of these places, real estate values are going up. We cannot afford it. And so this is where the National Party has a huge responsibility. It's neglect. It's neglect, really, in many cases, since the 1970s, has caused a lot of decline, a lot of backtracking, a lot of weakness.
They have learned nothing.
Now,
they have learned nothing.
Better learn this
because
year.
Reverend delivered Clinton. Okay? Now, that's a fact. No one has registered.
Obama
no one.
laid the groundwork for Obama.
Not just Obama. Reverend completely changed American politics. And quite frankly, world politics.
But
Absolutely.
I'm saying that
No, I'm only
laid the groundwork.
No, he laid the groundwork, but Obama, he also laid the groundwork for Bernie. He laid the groundwork for Geraldine Ferraro. I am tired of them limiting him to black people. Reverend was the one who said, he was the first top-tier candidate to say, I will put a woman on the ticket. And the eventual nominee, Mondale, refused to say he would do that. They did that so they would not put Jesse Jackson on the ticket. We live the history, and we need to tell the truth. And white women never thanked Reverend for putting them in the mix in politics and putting black women in the mix in politics. And you know what? You're never gonna win unless you give the credit, unless you know how you got where you are. Millions of people were registered to vote by that movement.
And that credit has never.
No, but I'm just saying it's not just the credit. It's just like this is how you win. So Democrats keep losing in the South because they don't register anyone. They put no resources in the South. They don't put resources in the inner city. You know how Republicans are winning? They give black folks, indigenous folks, brown folks, they give them money. They do. They set up these community centers. That's what they do. I'm not saying it's right. I'm saying, but it's smart. It's realpolitik. It's real politics. That's what they do. And Democrats do none of that. So I'm like, y'all just want to lose. Is that it? Is that it? And to Tracy Lewis, you need to call in sometimes. You got a lot of thoughts about how I handle the show, and I hear you. This is not Keep Hope Alive. This is a Santita Jackson show. But this is not a show full of Trump and Putin apologists. I don't even know Putin, and you don't know him either. You just know that corporate media showed you to hate him this time. They're going to move on to somebody else once we're done with Ukraine and once Ukraine is done with us. Just stop it. We're having a real discussion about where we are going. These people are talking about default now, Tracy. They're talking about it, and it sounds very different. It sounds very different, John. They're not talking about short-term default and long-term default. I'm like, are y'all serious right now? John, the last minute belongs to you. And we're going to talk for a few minutes because I want to get closing thoughts from the whole panel. Please, everybody, stay with me. John, the last minute, you got it.
Well, let me just say I agree with what you're saying here. This notion that they failed to give credit to Reverend Jackson, they failed to keep a consciousness of what works. Well, now we're decades on, and I'm telling you from Mississippi this morning that there are possibilities in the South, real possibilities, but they have got to go back to that 50-state strategy that Howard Dean had, and then they have to supercharge it. Money needs to move. Money needs to move to Mississippi and Louisiana. These states have gubernatorial races this year. Mississippi's electing its whole legislature. If Democrats get resources down here, it's a real test. But they could win. And understand that.
And
what would that mean going
that.
into 2024?
Well, and we have demonstrated that. That's my only point. This is not about Jesse Jackson. It's about Frank Watkins. It's about John Nichols. It's about Cleo Fields. It's about Kevin Gray. It's about Steve Cobble. It's about all these nameless, faceless people who got out in Abel Mabel. These folks who got out in these streets, registered people to vote, and they changed politics as we know it. Bernie Sanders. That's what they did. That's the fight. And it keeps you fighting. You got to get registered to vote.
This year, that fight's going on in Mississippi.
All right.
Isn't it good that we should finally pay attention to Mississippi?
Where they have the highest percentage of black people registered of any state in the nation. Reverend won Mississippi in 84 and 88. Stay right here, getting closing thoughts from everybody. July 15th through the 19th, the Rainbow Push International Conference. And in fact, we will have the 35th reunion of the 88 campaign. So you need to come on anyway. Everybody, call me at 763. Oh, well, no, not now, but stay on the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. And Santita Jackson, your friend. Sending you much love. Thank you, Alex, for a great show. Absolutely. You know, I'm just saying to you, you know, just because you disagree with what we're saying, whoever you are, Tracy and everybody else, you don't have to call people Trump apologists. I just don't get emotional about my politics. I've been emotional about politics. I've had people I have loved who've run for office. I saw my father put on a bulletproof vest and a bulletproof coat. And I've had the Secret Service tell me, well, you know, we're going to do the best that we can, which meant that if somebody aimed for his head, that was it. I've had skin in the game. So don't talk to me. I get it. All I'm saying is, and I learned, my father told me then, don't be emotional about this because this is not even about us. This is about some child out here who's going to see me run, who's going to know that they can become president. There'll be a black child, it'll be a black woman, it'll be a white woman, it'll be a white woman. It will be, I'm running so I can take the ceiling. One of the things I want to do is take the ceiling off of your ambitions. Don't talk to me, I'm telling you what I lived. I apologize for no one, but what I do is look at the science of it. I take my emotions out of it because that's what I was taught to do. It's not an emotional exercise for me. You know what makes me emotional? The fact that somebody, because of this default that they are playing with, somebody's not going to eat next week and next month. They will be old, they will be young, they will be in the middle, they will be black, white, brown, yellow, and red, and they don't deserve that. And if I have to criticize the Democrats, I will do it. If I have to criticize the Republicans, I will do it. Whatever corporatist is holding Americans hostage, I will criticize you. And I make no apologies for that. Call me an apologist. I don't care what you think. Nobody in this world should be hungry. God has made enough food for everybody, but there's some greedy people who don't want you to eat. And that ought to infuriate you. There's some people who don't want you to live in a home. We have homeless people who are now seniors because Social Security can't pay for them for a decent place to live. That ought to infuriate you. And if it's happening on a Democrat's watch or a Republican's watch, I don't care. It's something that ought to bother you, and you need to fight whoever is sitting on top of a system that allows that. You ought to be tired of this injustice. And you need to think enough of yourself to know that you don't deserve to be homeless. You don't deserve to be hungry. You don't deserve this maltreatment, this mistreatment, this disregard. You don't deserve it. You are somebody. You deserve. You're God's child. And that's the end of that for me. Everyone, I'm going to give everyone a chance to see what they got to say. John.
Now, how
let me just. It's hard, but important.
I'm looking at the comments, and I am. You know, when we talk about peace in Ukraine, I got people going upside my head about that. What? I'm a peace activist. I don't want anyone to die in war. I'm not going to wave a flag over that. My uncle went to Vietnam and he came back. My mother said he was not the same guy. And he wasn't even 60 when he died. I don't know what he got sprayed with over there. That's my uncle, my flesh and blood. Enough of that. John, CK, it's like, come on, y'all, what is this? So what? Trump said, I want peace. Okay, I don't want anyone to die. You know what? You can get mad with Trump all you want to. I agreed with him on that. Doesn't mean I support him, it means I agreed with him. Let's have peace. America and the arms industry that we are need to stop supporting that. America talks democracy, and 60% of the weapons that are sold to autocracies are sold to them by us. You cannot be serious. You ought to be tired of the contradictions. You ought to be sick of it. And you ought to be sick of having a global South in the United States where kids can't get educated, they can't eat, they don't have decent places to live, if they have a place to live at all. They don't have access to the internet. University of Chicago costs $100,000 a year. Who can afford that? You ought to be sick of that. You ought to know that you don't deserve to be mistreated like this and treated with this kind of disregard. You ought to be sick of it. I certainly am. John?
Well, you're putting a lot on the table here, and it's important, and it is, as CK says, hard to follow. So let it resonate. Let people take it in and hear what has been said here. And let us also understand that there are going to be a lot of differences. There are going to be debates. Debates are healthy. It is healthy for us to ask the tough questions. And Santita, if you don't ask them on this show, and if your guests don't ask them, if we don't wrestle with these questions, there's no way we're going to get any progress anywhere, right? We have to explore the failings and the missteps, the weaknesses of those who govern, right? Because if we don't, we can't possibly make them as strong as they should be. You're not necessarily a harm to those in power if you question them. In fact, often I think that questioning those in power makes them better and stronger. But if you don't ask the questions, if you don't raise the challenges, then you get into a difficult point. And this is something that I believe very strongly as regards President Biden. He's done a lot of good. I give him his credit for that good that he has done. But if people don't raise objections, if they don't raise challenges, then he will be on autopilot. He'll keep doing things the way he has done them without expanding out, without trying to do more. And as this conversation on this show today has revealed, there's so much at play. There are so many moving parts in our politics right now, be it foreign policy, be it domestic policy, be it Ukraine, be it the debt ceiling fight, all these things going on. We need our most creative ideas for how to handle them. And I have to tell you this, that again, circling back to where I've been at the last few days, down in southern states, in Mississippi, boy, when they talk about this debt ceiling debate, it is very, very real. Because in Mississippi, poorest state in the country, where they literally have rural hospitals closing on a regular basis. Yesterday, I had a woman tell me that where she comes from, if you get sick, have some ailment, right? There's no doctor in that town. There's no nurse. There's no nurse practitioner. Right. And you know how far you have to go to get to a hospital emergency room? Remember, if you've got an emergency, 75 miles. Now you think
John, there is a doctor on every block in Cuba. I mean, what?
Right. Well, and there used to be in America, by the way. There used to be doctors in a lot more places in America. But what we've done is we've turned the healthcare industry into a corporate entity. Not healthcare as a right, but healthcare for a profit. And as a result, young doctors who end up with all this debt, even the ones who want to work in the most remote places, they come out with all this debt out of medical school, and in many cases they end up being assigned to a hospital, a place where they're going to work. Well, as you close rural hospitals, the doctors doctors who were gone with those rural hospitals aren't there anymore. And so you're talking about people going 75 miles to get to an emergency room if they are sick or dying. Well, as this woman said to me, a very wise woman, a former school administrator, she said, we can't even keep track of the horror stories anymore. We can't keep track of all the cases where somebody doesn't make it. And if you put that in combination with a debt ceiling crisis, right, where they actually, allow the economy to go into a downward spiral, right, at a time when we actually do have high employment and a lot of things that are to the positive, even with inflation. If you start to collapse this, where is it going to fall hardest? Where is it going to fall hardest? It's going to fall hardest on that family in rural Mississippi. That's the truth, right? The folks that are 75 miles from that hospital, right? Because another rural hospital is going to close. And people are going to lose their cars, so they can't even drive to that hospital. I mean, this is the kind of human stuff that people have been talking to me about in the last few days down here. And I know we all know it instinctually, but boy, when you're sitting across the table from somebody who's telling you this and saying that they cannot believe that the politicians in Washington are, talking about this so casually, right? They may get, have some scary talk, but they still, they take a break, they go off and do something else, they bring in politics, they play their games. And for a lot of people, these are life and death issues. So you just got, Santita, pretty heated up, right? Pretty charged up there in some of your remarks. Well, you know what? That's what we ought to be. We ought to be charged up and heated up, because the fact of the matter is we are absolutely talking about life and death issues.
Look, Dick Durbin
will die.
Dick Durbin said during the banking crisis of 2008, he shrugged his shoulders in exasperation and said, look, the bankers run the place. Y'all ought to be sick of this.
Yep.
The corporations, we can look at the politicians, they're elected, yes, but you better look at these banks. You better look at these corporations that run Washington and run our politics. We have not seen the closing of so many mom and pop businesses since the Great Depression. You ought to be sick of that. Instead of calling Robert Kennedy an anti-vaxxer, why don't you deal with the fact that he has pointed that out? You ought to be sick of that. Most of us, most people of color, black folks in particular, John, are employed within our communities because people who look like us, who live like us, see our potential and they hire us. My father was a stellar student coming out of North Carolina A&T State University, and he got a letter from the governor and from his college president to get a job when he was coming up here to go to the University of Chicago. When Mayor Daley met him, he was going to put him at the toll booth.
That's right.
So what John Johnson's mother, Miss Gertrude, who was a churchgoer, she said, now, Jesse, I just like you, son. I want you to go meet my boy, Johnny, because that's what she called Mr. Johnson, her son, Johnny. Go see Johnny. He said, no, you're a communicator. And at that time, jets were not sold in stores. The reason you saw jets sold in stores was because of Reverend Jackson's advocacy. He pushed for that. Dwight was there because he was helping to push for it too. And Reverend, so you bought jets like you buy the Final Call, like you used to buy the newspaper on the street. And that's what he was a communicator. So those businesses have been wiped out in the main. Black businesses took a real hit as we closed everything down. And the only thing that grew were the huge businesses. They got bigger. So now if you really want to sell something, you better go through Amazon or it will not get sold. Is that right? I mean, really. And pay attention to this conversation that John is talking about. These people do not have doctors. What if you have a medical emergency? You're going to die. See, if Democrats really want to win, you frame the discussion in those terms, John. See, I'm fighting for that. Now, wait a minute, because y'all out there, y'all don't have hospitals. Not you don't have. No, y'all ain't got hospitals. I'm fighting for that, if that's indeed what you're fighting for. Because maybe I'm presupposing. Say that, but actually do it.
And can I just throw something in here?
Yes.
Too? Down in Mississippi, what Brandon Presley's running on, among other things, and he is, again, I emphasize, he's an economic populist, something of a social conservative. But some folks in Washington might not like everything that he is. But one of the things he's running on down here in Mississippi is expanding Medicaid and Medicare, right? Making sure that you actually have to get these federal resources in to get people the health care that they need. They haven't done that in Mississippi. Can you imagine that? Here you are, poorest state in the country, people with some of the worst health outcomes in the whole United States, and they don't have the expanded Medicaid that you have in almost every other state, or certainly in most northern states. That's a political choice that was made by the Republicans. This is something that if Democrats run on, and the more it's amplified, the more they make clear what is being discussed here. Literally, the question of whether you have health care or not, whether you can afford it or not, whether it's real or not, whether those rural hospitals can stay open or whether they're going to be closed. That's what's on the ballot. You make the election about that, you'd be surprised how you can overcome all of these Republican, memes about, trans kids playing sports or about books in libraries or things like that. It is possible to connect with people on a much deeper, much more fundamental level. That's what folks are telling me here. That's what I'm seeing here.
Well, but Democrats have to be fighting for that. Yeah, absolutely. But Democrats have to be fighting for that. They cannot be corporatist. Because remember, we've had a takeover of our party as well. A corporatist takeover. Mm-hmm. And that's what we're fighting. Mm-hmm. And we need to call that out. Because Democrats could win. They could win on the issues. They could win on Bernie Sanders. They can't win on this right-wing mess. They can't. And they can't win, and they should not win because the people will lose. It's not right. It's just not right.
Santita,
yes. I'm sorry, Representative Hardaway.
That's okay. First, I want to say amen because you gave your dad a run there for a minute.
No, not quite.
I could feel those genes coming through the airways. But John was speaking to the issue of expanding Medicaid, and they sometimes consider Memphis to be the biggest city in North Mississippi. And I can tell you that there's a lot of back and forth in terms of politics. They may do it first in Tennessee, but Mississippi will be next to do it when it comes to these crazy gun laws and health care and other matters. So we have been, in Tennessee, I'll give you my experience, we've been hitting Medicaid expansion for years now. And what comes to mind is I sit on Commerce, the House Commerce Committee, and we had rural Republicans, Trumpsters, as a matter of fact, to come to testify before committee. And they got all kind of sympathy from Democrats, understanding from some of the more moderate Republicans, but at the end of the day, those Republicans sitting on that committee still resisted Medicaid expansion, and they, because of the way that they have gerrymandered their districts, they were overwhelmingly elected to come back. What stands out in the testimony, one of the mayors of one of the larger towns in one of the districts told his state representative, look, my wife almost died because she had a medical emergency. I had to drive across 3 counties to get her to a clinic, and not a hospital, but a clinic. And that just, it makes me understand that God and guns is going to rule the day for some of these areas, no matter what their best interests may be. They are still going to come back to how they feel about candidates who are speaking to their faith and firearms. That's what's driving politics in Tennessee, and I dare say in a lot of the Mississippi districts, from talking to some of my legislative colleagues down there.
Well, Lakeisha Myers, State Representative Lakeisha Myers, I mean, because, when you go to Milwaukee, Chicago, you might as well be in Jackson, Mississippi, on the west and south sides of Chicago, of course. Is Representative Myers still there? Okay, well, let me move around. Attorney Jones, are you still there? CK? Dwight? Anybody?
I'm still here. Okay, it made a loop, but I still
okay, CK, your thoughts?
I got to defer to that. Well, yes, I would. I was going to defer to Daddy Dave because, Uncle Dwight, because of his wisdom of that. So, I just hate to just say anything before he does,
Daddy
so I've been holding on.
You're so crazy, Dave.
Oh, I love it.
Let me close my thought with this, Santita, and T, is that the reason that LeBron James is at home today watching television is because
wait.
they
Where's
really
Alex?
did.
Because I'm gonna have to put the mute on him. He's gonna say something.
Follow the point.
Okay.
Is that they misunderstood Jovic. They miscalculated Jovic. They had never seen a center who could dribble and shoot and pass like this guy. And the reason they got swept is because it took them 4 games to figure out that he was the real deal. I say that to say that Tim Scott can have that kind of impact on the Republican Party. Tim Scott can have the same impact on the Republican Party that Jesse Jackson had on the Democratic Party. He is that charismatic, he is that strategic, and he is that likable that he can have the net impact of really expanding that party and bringing in people who historically have never had a reason to respond to them, but will find themselves philosophically more connected to their party than they had. If you remember back in the day, most black men were Republicans. Dr. King was Republican. Dr. King's daddy was Republican.
Well, black women, black people were, right?
Republicans, that's correct. And particularly the black preachers. And so I say that to say that Tim Scott can have that kind of energizing impact on a lot of people, not just black people, but Hispanics and white people who right now is not that enthusiastic about any of the candidates, Trump or anybody that's out there. He will also have the impact of energizing them. So I think that he is going to be a ram in the thicket in this thing. And don't discount him and the impact that he may have in all of this.
That's, you know what, honestly, Dwight, CK, Daryl, I don't know. Daryl, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm still here.
I mean, John, that's all I'm saying. I'm like, take your emotion out of this for a minute. You got to look at, because you have to understand, I know when they took God out of some part of the platform at the Democratic Party, you remember that, John? I think it was in 2012.
Oh, yeah.
I walked out. I said, no, I didn't sign up for this. I did not sign up for this. And I was so furious as I was walking out of the convention center. I called my mother. And she said, just stay calm. It's going to work out. She said, but, I'm not with that either. I said, I'm not with that. I'm tired of having people who are religious being slammed by people on the blue side. I'm sick of that. Tired of it. And you're going to have some other, but I think politically, strategically, and, okay, what's going to happen here? All right. That having been said, that's why I'm simply saying to you, John, black people fell in with the Democrats because the Democrats said, okay, we're going to work with you on civil rights. Okay? But black folks resonate with Romney, George Romney, that is, and his son, who was an independent until he ran for president, who lost his seat as the governor of Michigan because he got frustrated with the Republican Party because they would not support civil rights in the 60s. That's why Republicans don't trust Romney today. They're like, we know what your history is, man. And I'm simply saying to you, when Donald Trump came to our Wall Street project, he was lined up with Ross Perot. He was thinking about running for president under that banner. My point is, John, he is transactional. And he is a marketer.
He is.
He did the low-hanging fruit because white folks, black folks, people in America do all this racial talk, racist talk. We do that, all that banter. That works. That's Clinton ran on racism. He did. And he did. That was our pushback as progressives on things that he did. George W. Bush, George H. This is what we do. This is how we do. This is how we get down in the United States. That having been said, now that we have seen and done all of that, John, you're going to see people line up ideologically, which is what Dwight was talking about with this campaign. because some white people voted for Brandon who you never expected to vote for him. Some black folks went for Vallis who you were like, wait a minute, what's going on here? What's going on here is that people line up with folks culturally too, John. It's not.
Let me, if I can just jump in here and agree with you. And then I fear I have to leave, and I'm so sorry because this is such a great discussion.
No, you're hurting.
I've got some interviews I got to do down here. But
okay.
I'll tell you something that is an interesting thing, and just a quick aside. Other people have such wise things to say as well. You mentioned taking mention of God out of the platform. You mentioned Democrats who sometimes get uncomfortable with mentions of faith, right? And mentions of religious passion and commitment. And I will tell you one of the interesting things about being down here in Mississippi. One of the reasons that Brandon Presley, you were just talking about Brandon Johnson in Chicago, but one of the reasons why Brandon Presley is doing very well in Mississippi as a white man, but doing very, very well with a multiracial coalition, including a lot of black voters, is because he quotes scripture regularly in his speeches, in his secular speeches, right? When he's out talking to a crowd, he will reference the Bible, right? Now, I am fully respectful of the fact that not everybody's a Christian. Many people have commitments as regards other faiths, Judaism, Hinduism, Islam. I respect that. But in Mississippi, especially in rural Mississippi, there are deep and rich Christian traditions. And people often have understandings through parables, through lessons of issues of justice, of issues of equity, that are sometimes best brought out by a reference to Scripture. And Brandon Presley's doing that. And one of the things that a lot of the national media will never figure out, if Brandon Presley by chance wins this race in Mississippi, if he prevails, they will say, oh, it was, because of Medicare or Medicaid expansion. They'll say it was maybe because of Tate Reeves' corruption. Those things are all true. I accept that, totally accept that. But I will tell you that these cultural connections, this willingness to quote from Scripture, to reference faith in a political context, and I know some people get uncomfortable with that, but boy, that has meaning in many parts of the country, and it's something that in my craft, in journalism, a lot of people fail to write about. They stand away from it. They're like, that I'm not going to deal with. You can't understand the connections that are being made right now in Mississippi, connections being made in Louisiana, connections being made in other states that are tough states for Democrats. You cannot underestimate the importance of making that cultural connection. And I'll leave it at that. And I have to go do other things, and I know probably other folks may as well. But I think that is a vital part
Absolutely.
of a whole Democratic Party. If you're going to have a Democratic Party that really is a big, big tent that welcomes everybody in, a part of what needs to be welcomed in is that very positive, very hopeful, very refreshing New Testament faith that there can be a deliverance, right? That you can in fact move from a place of oppression to a place of liberation. And that is something that powered the civil rights movement. That is something that has powered the peace movement. That is something that has powered so many great movements in this country. And it doesn't mean that you have to give up on many secular values. It doesn't mean that you have to give up on a separation of church and state. You can understand all that, respect all that. But there should also be respect for the fact that for many of us, a way of communicating is rooted in, that question, if the foundations be destroyed, what do the righteous do? And that answer, the stone which the builders rejected, has become the cornerstone of the temple, right? That we take that which has been rejected, which has been denied, that which has been oppressed, and we use that to build something stronger something bigger. And for many people, that is a way of communicating, and it ought not be lost. It isn't being lost here in Mississippi. It's one of the more fascinating parts about covering politics.
It never is. If you don't connect with people, you lose. You lose. You've got to connect with people. That is what you do. That's crazy.
And with that, I have to depart.
I'm sending you much love because I've got a Zoom call, but I want to get closing thoughts from everybody here. Literally, I have a minute for everybody because I gotta push. Attorney Darrell, I love you, John. Attorney Darrell Jones, give my love to everybody down in Mississippi. Attorney Darrell Jones.
I will.
Thank you so much, Santita, and thank you so much, John, for that analysis. I think that much of what's being laid out here really does explain the South, right, and how vital the South is going to be to the progress that the Democratic Party makes. And I think just as a testament and certainly a clear example of how the Democratic Party writes off some of the southern states is when Judge Sherry ran for the Senate in North Carolina. So she was in a position to win that seat, but the Democrats would not invest in her. They didn't believe that the black people would turn out and put her in office when they had the opportunity to do it. So until the Democratic Party really starts getting on the ground and investing in the groups that are there doing the work, they're not going to win in the South. I mean, it's winnable in the South, but the party has got to believe that the folks can turn out and win those southern states.
And this black woman was not their choice. Okay. They had someone else in mind. That's what happened. And maybe that shocked her too. They didn't have her in mind. Let's keep it real. These people lift up whomever they choose. They did not have her in mind, so they did not invest in her. They did not have the young man down in Kentucky in mind. They invested in a safe white woman, and they lost. They took someone who went from 1% name recognition to almost winning the nomination 4 years ago. They didn't want to touch him. Are you for real? The Democrats play racist games just like the Republicans do. They just do it with a smile and with black people all over the place. I'm tired of it. I'm tired of it. She could have won. You wouldn't have the problems in the Senate that you have now if the Democrats would get behind some Democrats who could win if they got support. You are right, Darrell. But they don't support. I can't believe I'm forgetting this young man in Kentucky. He could have won. Sherry Beasley could have won.
What's his name?
Who?
Yeah, first name was Charles. I'm trying to come up with the last name.
Oh, yeah, but, no, goodness. Exactly.
Booker.
Booker. I'm like, really? These are the people who you don't expect. Do you really think putting Reverend on the ticket in 1988, do you think they could have done worse than they did with that Dukakis ticket? Who did he run with? Really? Someone who registers 7 million people to vote? Are you crazy? Now, wait a minute, y'all. I know too much about politics to even want to be in that. I don't feel bad about anything. I'm so happy that we did what we did and we kept it moving. I'm talking about moving the ball along. Okay? So, but Arlene, you're right. America is racist, and you know what? And still we continue to move forward. Because even with our racism, we still move things along. We're sexist, we're all kinds of things. And we also have the capacity to move on and move above our sicknesses in the moments when it counts. We can do that. And we have to continue to push to make this a more perfect union, and the more perfect union has to first start within you. We can be the best people we can be. We can. So that's okay. That's all right. But I'm just saying, really, Charles Booker, thank you so much. Charles Booker almost won 5 years ago, and he could have won this last time. But you know what? You didn't have the big name Democrats all over him. He had to raise that money himself. Come on. Sherry Beasley shocked the Democratic Party. She is the one who said the Democrats won't send me any money. I didn't say it. She's the one who said it. I need some resources, y'all. I could win this thing. Wasn't she a Supreme Court justice down there?
Absolutely.
What other credentials do you all want? It's very clear that she's the person you didn't want. How about that? And we lost. And Herschel Walker almost won. Say what you will about Tim Scott. Tim is going to peel off some black votes, and he's going to peel off some black women because they're going to see he's a nice guy who loves his mama, who believes in God, and he ain't been married yet. Maybe my daughter can marry him. She's going to convince him to get married. Not going to happen, but I got you. And you might get married. 60-year-old get married. People do that all the time. I got it. I ain't mad at nobody, okay? I'm just saying to you, stop and be scientific in your analysis of what we're looking at. That's all you need to do. That's all you need to do. Because I promise you before the Lord, but when he starts talking on these cultural issues, Daryl, CK, Dwight, he's going to pull some people. Because these culture wars are heating up. And many black people don't sign on to a lot of these cultural issues. I'm not going to bring them up right now because I don't have time to do that kind of talking right now. But you all know what I'm talking about. Because I hear you talking about it. And I'm from the black community. I know how we think. I know what we feel. So y'all, come on. And I tell you what, whoever wins in 2024, you better negotiate with them so you can get what it is that you need. Before you give someone you want your vote, make sure you get what you need from them. And if you get who you do not want, you make sure you get what you need from them anyway. That's politics. The first thing Richard Daley's son did when he became mayor was go for his father's enemies. Not Reverend, but everybody else. He went to people and said, hey, you know what? I know my father and you had problems, but I don't want to have those problems. That was then, this is now. That's what he did. That's politics, everybody. That's politics. And you must grow up in yours and understand how this works. And yes, I am emotional. I'm emotional, Tracy, you're right. But I'm not emotional in the outcomes of my politics. No, I'm not. No. I'm too mature for that. Because there have been a lot of people who I have not liked who I voted for, but I felt that they would be best for us. I felt it would be easier for us to negotiate with them. So I'm not emotional in my politics in that way. I am too much, I'm a veteran of these wars, sweetheart. And my father's life, my mama's life, and my family's lives have been on the line on this. So I'm not the one to come after on this. Let me give you a little story about my mom, and Dwight can attest to this, and so can CK. My mother was campaigning for my father in 1984, and she was in Cleveland. And as they were walking through the airport, she was walking with Mrs. Carol Tidmore, one of our very, very dear friends. There was a man behind her behaving suspiciously. And he was like trailing them, right? And Mrs. Tidmore said, Jackie, let's get you on this plane. She got nervous. She said, let's get you on the plane because this just doesn't feel right. My mother dropped her bags and turned around. She said, if he's going to do something to me, he won't do it in my back. He'll do it in my face. That's in my blood, y'all. That's where I come from. How about that? So there's that. Does anyone else have anything to say?
No, Santita, I was just going to say goodbye. And thank you. This has been, I think said it all. But I hope we continue this discussion, like I said.
I think we need to, CK. Why do you want to continue the discussion?
I want to continue it because I had the experience with Tim Scott.
Okay.
I came with guns blaring, talking about, George Floyd's family's there, ready. He and Lindsey Graham were blocking this, blocking that, and we were trying to, as a group of lawyers, both the National Bar Association lawyers, this is when I was president of the NBS, we were trying to provide an avenue for an analysis that could move the legal issues, associated with some of the remaining items. So we could provide, look, we'll give you all the research, let's get this done. And he was talking, I don't know, he's very affable, very appealing. I didn't like a word he said, but he had my attention.
Wait a minute. Haven't you seen Reverend do that? People who walk into the meeting ready to hate him. Then they'd meet him and go, oh, wait a minute.
Well, I mean, I was mumbling and grumbling and blowing the house down leaving, but I can tell you, he made a different impression on me than what I expected.
Okay.
He is a force to be reckoned with. That's all I'm saying. He's a force to be reckoned with. You know, for those of us who are determined to see policing reform, all he did was he provided a perspective of a formidable opponent. Okay. Lindsey Graham was not a formidable opponent. Not at all. Not a formidable opponent.
He's not had to work as hard. He has not had to cross the hurdles. This man has had to figure out a whole lot of relationships to get to where he is. He had to figure out a lot of relationships so that Nikki Haley would just leap over all these black folks and white folks and brown folks, Indians and everybody else, to say, you know what, no, you're going to be the senator.
And how about this? I will leave you with this. He said words to this effect. Look, I get it. Just like this, I get it. I grew up a black man in the South, stopped by the police, driving while black. See, starting your argument with that when you are a Southern Republican
is disarming.
Automatically, it is disarming. That's how we started the discussion. I was like, what kind of, I had to get myself together because what he was offering a different perspective.
You know who he sounded like, CK? He sounded like your grandparents. Because your grandparents ask your parents, hold on, Dwight, wait. Because your grandparents want to know, what you doing out there marching, boy? You better get your butt to school. Hello? I'm sorry, Dwight. Am I wrong?
And if Biden is not careful, he's going to be just like LeBron. He's going to be watching the game. Going to be watching.
Can someone push the button?
Watch it on TV.
Mute him.
He's going to be watching this thing from television.
CK, you know, really?
He's that formidable. I'm with you. I'm with you.
Right, man.
No. I'm sorry. He's Daddy D. Sorry.
He's Daddy D. He's Daddy D and Uncle D. See, I switch back and forth because sometimes he's Daddy D, but then he's Uncle D. But sometimes he's Uncle Dwight, not Dwight, but Dwight. So that's the sign of a true visionary. A social sign for someone who speaks truth to power.
No, you got us on that one today. You like, I want to listen to Daddy D. I'm like, wait a minute, what? I can't wait to tell my mama what you called him today. I can't wait. You know, she always wants to know what happened on your show today. I'm going to tell you, CK came up with a new name for Dwight. Daddy D. Oh my gosh. Representative Hardaway, I didn't know you were still there. Bless your heart. It's just too much. Are you coming to Chicago? You better come up.
I'm coming to Chicago. I want to be part of the strategic plan for black folks, for poor folks, those who are experiencing racism and classism in America.
Okay.
You're exactly right. If we don't have a program that we can put down in front of the Republican and the Democratic Party, then we're not going to get what we need. If we're going to be satisfied with being an add-on to somebody else's agenda, we're not going to get what we need. So I don't care whether you're Republican or Democrat. Somebody needs to be speaking to the issues.
That's right.
No matter how much you like individuals who are holding themselves out for your vote for election. And I've been through this through Clinton, through Obama, both terms, through Hillary Clinton and her run, and through Biden and his run, where they promised 50-state strategies. And we've been sitting down here in Tennessee waiting and hungering and thirsting for that attention and that first dollar. If you look at what the extreme gerrymandering has done, thanks to our lack of funds, the inability to fight these folks because they get national dollars rolling in for legislative races. So they won the House, won the Senate, and they've been able to do the extreme gerrymandering because they appointed all of the important state judges, and of course, when we get up to the federal courts, Trump has taken care of that by appointments of extremists in the key judicial seat. Then they're able to control Congress because they control the state houses. We had 2 congressional districts, one held by Cooper and another potential congressional district that would have been in the rural areas of the Tennessee, state of Tennessee, that we could have had, but we lost them. We lost them through the extreme gerrymandering. Look what 1 or 2 seats, look what the difference would have made in Congress this session. Just think about it. So we've got to demand, and that's black folks all over the nation, we've got to demand that our agenda be addressed, that we have a timeline on those commitments. When are you going to get this done, this done, this done? Mm-hmm. So we're not waiting for executive orders, not waiting for federal legislation all the way up to election day. And then we get a promise, well, next term we'll take a look at it.
And don't take no for an answer.
We have got to do better.
That's right. You know, I'm like, look.
We've got to do that. Well, that's why it's so important to be part of the July 15th through 19th or 14th through 19th?
15th through the 19th.
Yeah, we've got to have that brain trust functioning and have some documents, something in black and white
because when
I say the Republicans and the Democrats to look at.
Because when I say, no, Biden, you got to do for me, folks get angry with me. I'm like, why are you mad with me? I mean, he won because he said he was going to do that, so I need him to do it. It's that simple. You're not going to tell the Jewish community no. You're not going to tell the LGBTQ plus community no. You're not going to tell the Italian American community no. You're going to tell everybody no. You're not going to tell anybody no but me. And then you need my vote? Sorry. No.
Look, my dad and granddad would say fair swap ain't no swindle. So when we're going to give you support, then you need to give us what we need so we can achieve the same quality of life that our white Democrats are living. We need to have that assurance. We need it in black and white.
That's now you all. I love you all, but I'm going to have to run because I've been told I'm 16 minutes late to this call. So let me do this. I love you, and I'll be in touch with all of you. How about that? We're going to continue this conversation. Maybe we'll do it tomorrow. CK, you think about what you want to talk about because it's a whole lot. I love you all. I love you. I love you. I love you.